Chapter 1191. Dustless's confident words made everyone stunned, and then there was a burst of disdainful laughter. No one is an exception to my ability. You'd better surrender. A soldier of the Hose division laughed contemptuously, full of confidence in his own ability. You will regret it if you resist. Glancing at Dustless, a soldier of the Hose division appeared next to Shiro Tongsen, Shidoro Senjumaru, and others. He wrote the word hide on their bodies. Then the same scene played out. At the moment when the pen stopped, several people disappeared. Whether it was Ryatsu or smell, they couldn't be perceived. Dustless tried to use observation hockey to search for traces of several people again, and the result was the same as before. This ability is really good. Even observation hockey can't find them. Dustless sighed. Now in such a big world, only he and a soldier of the Hose division were left. Everyone else was hidden with the ability of a soldier of the Hose division. Boom! The light all over his body dissipated, splashing all over the ground like raindrops. Humph! Your mouth is sharp, but your body is still injured. Seeing Dustless's body split in two, a soldier of the Hose division sneered. Young man, there is no invincible ability in this world, you should... The words on the tip of his tongue stopped abruptly, and following the line of sight of a soldier of the Hose division, Dustless's body, which fell to the ground in two, floated a faint light, turned into thousands of light particles, and approached Dustless, repairing the damaged body. And in the blink of an eye, it was restored to its original state. You are right, there is no invincible ability in this world, but at least my ability is invincible to you. Dustless retorted. These words made a soldier of the Hose division's face turn green, ashamed and angry. His eyes quietly turned around in front of him. Even if he couldn't see people, Dustless knew that the members of the Zero Squad were quietly waiting for an opportunity. Although I can't see you, it doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. A wave of air spread out from the void. Dustless's words fell into everyone's ears. You can't even see the enemy. What right do you have to continue fighting? Crossing his arms in front of his chest, a soldier from the War Master's division mocked. Dustless quietly looked at the soldier commander's first soldier. He finally knew that Yawatch had chosen to forcefully dismember him in the future. This guy isn't strong. It's hard to tell who's stronger between him and Head Captain Yamamoto when it comes to fighting strength. His temper is really bad. Dustless thought. At the same time, a pitch-black energy ball appeared in his hand. It was extremely dense and dangerous. The moment it appeared, the entire world was affected by an invisible energy fluctuation. Although I can't see you, but... Dustless's lips curled into a cruel smile. His eyes emitted a terrifying red light. His repressed smile made the world of the Spirit King Palace fall into a dead silence. As long as I destroy this world, they won't be spared. As soon as he finished speaking, the energy ball in Dustless's hand floated into the sky. At the same time, two opposite forces of yin and yang gathered in his palms. A moon appeared in one of his palms, and a sun appeared in the other. 6 paths, Chibaku Tensei. As the powerful roar fell, everything was destroyed. The ground was shaking, and the sky was crying. The cloudless sky of the Spirit King Palace dimmed. A powerful gravitational force that could destroy the world suddenly descended. Ka. Under the influence of the boundless spiritual pressure, the Spirit King Palace collapsed instantly. Everything turned into ashes. The Spirit King Palace that had been built for nearly 1,000 years collapsed in an instant. The fragments of the buildings all floated into the sky, and the originally incomparably narrow bead instantly increased in size by 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Bastard! A soldier from the Hose division cursed. Perhaps Dustless couldn't see it, but he saw it clearly. The members of the Zero Squad were struggling to resist the gravitational force. Even so, their bodies were still floating up uncontrollably. Destroy that black energy ball. It should be the weak point. A soldier from the War Master division quickly shouted as his pupils constricted. As expected of the leader of the Zero Squad. His strength is not bad, and his eyesight is so sharp. He instantly saw through the weakness of Chibaku Tensei. But what's the use? Staring at the endless attacks flying toward Chibaku Tensei, Rinnegan emitted some light. Wheel grave, border prison. Suddenly, a ripple appeared in the void, and dozens of shadows flashed together. The shadows were dressed and looked the same. They were all based on the original body of Dustless. Boom boom boom. The colorful attacks exploded and turned into a violent energy shockwave that swept out. The powerful spiritual pressure was so violent that the entire world of the Spirit King Palace trembled. Are you kidding me? Why did it explode? The members of the Zero Squad were stunned at this scene. They were all shocked and frightened. Looking at the giant sphere that was constantly expanding, their minds were in a mess. Looking at the flattened Spirit King Palace, a ridiculous thought appeared in everyone's mind. The Spirit King that had lasted for tens of thousands of years was probably going to be replaced from now on. Other than that, the bodies of the Zero Squad were sucked towards the Chibaku Tensei and were gradually sealed by the Chibaku Tensei. Only Wu Chen and a soldier from the War Master Division were barely unharmed. How could the attack just now explode? A soldier from the Hose Division was stunned. The air around him was restricted, and a conspicuous seal word could be seen. You actually sealed yourself, with a touch of surprise in his eyes, Dustless directly answered. Your attacks were all blocked by my shadows. Dustless explained softly as if he did something insignificant. He didn't do anything, and the shadows did nothing. They used their bodies to block the fierce attacks of the Zero Squad. Chapter 1192. The Spirit King Palace had completely collapsed, and it was a mess. The entire world was flattened, and only the palace in the middle was intact. The figure in the palace was wrapped in an unknown barrier, and it looked like a precious object that was sealed. His eyes were lifeless, and it was obvious that he had no consciousness. Dustless's pupils shrank, and he immediately said his name. Spirit King. What the hell do you want to do? The soldier commander was shocked and quickly removed the seal on his body. Looking at Dustless's eager eyes, he was terrified and quickly shouted. Let me tell you, Spirit King is the symbol of Hueco Mundo and Hueco Mundo. Once he dies, everything in the world will collapse and disappear. This is not good for you. Of course not. Dustless admitted it. Spirit King was indeed very important, and the whole world would be finished without Spirit King. It's good that you understand. Hearing this, the soldier commander was relieved, thinking that Dustless was willing to let Spirit King go, and the shackles on his body immediately disappeared. But the next sentence made him feel as if he was carrying 10 mountains on his back. So I'm not killing Spirit King, but making him a part of my body's power. It would have been better if he didn't say anything. The moment he said that, a soldier from the War Master's division rushed over in a rage. Real fight. White pen. Seeing that he was fighting alone, the soldier commander released his Zanpakuto. The so-called real fight, according to the current meaning, was Bankai. Your Zanpakuto is very dangerous. Staring at the murderous soldier commander, Dustless said, once hit by your Zanpakuto, you can erase the opponent's name. Even if my Ryujin Jaka is hit by you, you can also erase his name. At that time, the ability of Ryujin Jaka will be gone forever. However, after you solve the Bankai, you will gain a new ability. You can engrave a new name on something whose name has been erased by the Bankai. If you engrave Black Ant on the target will become as weak and powerless as an ant. Dustless explained as he stared at the Zanpakuto of the soldier division. This guy, how could he know about my ability? A soldier from the Weapon Master's division was shocked and could not calm down for a long time. He remained motionless as if he had been struck by lightning. Not to mention Dustless. Even the members of Squad Zero might not know of his ability. Humph, since you know how powerful my Zanpakuto is, hurry up and surrender. I can tell you clearly, my Zanpakuto. It's better if you don't say such arrogant words. Every time you say such confident words, the fantasy in your heart is instantly shattered, Dustless said with a smile. You bastard. Hearing this, Wei, a soldier from the War Commander Division, was furious. His round eyes locked onto Wu Chen as he waved his Zanpakuto to create a ripple. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The moment it emerged, the ripples were magnified hundreds of times, turning into a ferocious slash that whistled through the air. Your Zanpakuto's ability is very good. Dustless nodded in agreement. Even Yawatch could not take away the ability of a soldier from the Weapon Master Division. His Zanpakuto's ability was exceptionally heaven-defying. Once hit by his slash, his strength would be reduced by half. Puchi! The sword pressure passed through Dustless's body and cut him in half. However, What made the soldier from the Weapon Master Division angry was that the moment he was sent flying, Dustless used his elemental transformation to ignore him. He could not hurt him at all. Bastard, fight me fair and square if you have the guts. Seeing this scene, a soldier from the Weapon Master Division vomited blood in frustration. Any of his attacks did not work on Dustless. It was completely useless. He was just humiliating himself. Old Baldy, pointing to the only remaining palace of the Spirit King Palace behind him, Dustless smiled and said, "If I'm not wrong, the person who cut off the Spirit King's limb should be your Zero Squad." Hearing this, a soldier from the Weapon Master Division lowered his head in silence. After a while he glanced at the Spirit King's position with a complicated expression and said helplessly, "You want to devour the Spirit King, so you should know the origin of the Spirit King. Back then, due to the instability caused by stabilizing the soul in and out, a special person was created to stabilize the soul in and out. He is the current Spirit King." Dustless smiled slightly. He already knew this. When he went to the Great Spirit Library to read the secrets of the Spirit King, Dustless happened to see this scene. Later, due to the birth of the Spirit King, the soul did indeed stabilize, and the entire Soul Society gradually became peaceful. A soldier from the Weapon Master Division recalled with a smile on his face, as if he was yearning for that peaceful life. But later, an accident happened to the Spirit King, and the ending that we did not want to see the most happened. His face suddenly stiffened. A soldier from the Weapon Master Division said with a heavy look in his eyes, "The Spirit King actually gave birth to consciousness. This was the result that we did not want to see the most because he was only created as a tool. A tool with consciousness is not a tool, and he would not listen to us. So we cut off his limbs, took away the Spirit King's consciousness and heart, and sealed the Spirit King until today. The Spirit King is a collection of souls, and has endless power, more powerful than your Hogyoku." A soldier from the Weapon Master Division said in a heavy tone, and then he said angrily, "The world is unpredictable, and we thought that this matter would end here. Who would have thought that Yawatch, as a part of the Spirit King's body, would lead Quincy to take revenge on the Death God?" The result was the tragic battle that happened 1,000 years ago. Although Yawatch was defeated, he was a part of the Spirit King, and he could not be killed. So Yuan Lu Zai used the same method to take away Yawatch's power and heartbeat. Chapter 1193. Dustless wasn't surprised after listening to the long speech of the first soldier. It was almost the same as what he thought. Soul Society's original intention was to create a tool to maintain the soul, Psy King, and use him as a tool. Who would have thought that this tool would develop consciousness? And the Reapers, who realized that he was too dangerous, cut off Psy King's limbs and made him lose his heart and will. Now they even sealed his soul, you guys. It's all your own fault. Dustless mocked mercilessly. If it were me, I would also kill this Reapers and wash away the shame. For some reason, Dustless suddenly sympathized with Yawatch. You! A soldier from the War Master's Division was angered by Wu Chen's words. He shouted, "We have no choice but to sacrifice him for the good of the world. This is justice. So it's natural for Yawatch to hate you Reapers," Dustless said disdainfully, and he had a new understanding of the Reapers' pedantry. "However, I still want Psy King to be a part of me." Dustless still refused to let go. If he didn't take Psy King, Yawatch would be the one who would benefit. This was helping the enemy. "Humph, I thought I could dispel your unrealistic thoughts, but it's useless now." The first soldier raised his Zanpakuto again, and his meaning was self-evident. 1,000 miles heaven palm. Spiritual pressure fluctuated in his hand, and a huge palm of flesh rushed over. "Old thing, you don't have a memory at all." Dustless couldn't help but shake his head, and he also raised his arm, and a huge palm of flesh formed in an instant. 1,000 miles heaven palm. The same move flew out from Dustless's mouth, and he used it twice in a row, and it was as powerful as the first soldier. Boom boom boom. The two huge palms inevitably collided, and a series of explosions resounded through the world, and a large amount of flames erupted. Shoo shoo shoo. An afterimage flashed out of the flames, pouncing at the speed of light, and the pen-shaped Zanpakuto slashed down horizontally. Pucci! Dustless, who was caught off guard, was instantly cut into two and brutally dismembered. However, in the next second, the body that was cut into two started to turn into photons. In less than a few seconds, Dustless recovered. This guy. Seeing this, Dustless had a headache. He really wanted to use some sort of illusion attack to test the effect, but other than him, everyone else in Team Zero was finished. Looking at the giant meteorite with the bright moon hanging high in the sky, the soldiers of the War Master Division trembled with fear. He was afraid that Dustless would fall and destroy the Spirit King Palace. Stop playing house. I'm not interested in playing with you anymore. Wu Chen glanced at the guards of the War Master Division, then turned his head to look at the void behind him. A large word seal could be seen clearly, forming a transparent barrier. The entire Spirit King Palace was divided into two worlds because of this word. What? Could it be that you want to break my barrier by force? A soldier from the War Master's Division sneered at Dustless's arrogance. Ha! What is that? Green light? The strange light around Dustless attracted the attention of a soldier from the War Master's Division. The emerald light was quite beautiful, and it covered Dustless. Dustless's temperament also changed drastically. He was very cold, and his indifferent eyes looked at the soldier from the War Master's Division like a bug. This is the chakra mode of the Tensigan. Dustless kindly explained to the soldier from the War Master's Division. Humph, I don't care what mode you are in. My seal? The soldier from the War Master's Division stopped talking and looked up at Dustless, who was flying in the sky. He frowned as he noticed several mysterious beads floating behind Dustless. That's it. Spirit King Palace. With a wave of her hand, the beads behind her flew in front of Dustless. Then they turned into liquid and gathered on Dustless's right arm. Vaguely, a destructive light could be seen. Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. As soon as he finished speaking, countless slender light swords slashed out and flew straight towards the enchantment that had the word seal written on it. Crack! A crisp sound directly stunned the soldier from the War Master's Division. The enchantment that he painstakingly created was like a watermelon that was penetrated and crushed by the golden light. It's just a... The green light on the surface of Dustless's skin disappeared. He glanced at the soldier from the War Master's Division and left like a gust of wind. Stop right there. Seeing this, the soldier from the War Master's Division was shocked. He activated Shuanpa and quickly blocked in front of Dustless. Back off. The soldier from the War Master's Division shouted. His tone was filled with flames that burned people's skin. Old monk, you've blocked in front of me time and time again. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Seeing this, Wu Chen gradually became more irritated. An unkillable bug, relying on its own ability to jump in front of you again and again, was very hateful. Since you want to die so badly, I'll grant you your wish. Dustless snorted. Cold chi was pulsing all over his body. A black metal rod appeared in his hand. It was extremely black. It was the yin-yang escape technique. This technique was most suitable to completely crush the enemy. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. With a powerful swing, the black metal rod flew out. Humph, you want to kill me with this? Dream on. You can't even hit me. Just as the soldier from the War Master's Division was about to move his body, he was shocked to find that he was being hugged and could not move at all. Farewell. You have been subdued by my shadow. Be a good boy and wait for your death. Dustless brushed past the soldier from the War Master's Division. He did not even look at him as he walked towards the Spirit King Palace. The black metal rod finally hit the soldier from the War Master's Division. His body began to collapse. Chapter 1194. In the huge Spirit King Palace, Dustless was the only one walking alone. The soldier division was hit by the yin-yang escape, and there was no other choice but death. As for the other 4 members of the Zero Squad, they were all sealed by Dustless inside the 6 paths. Chibaku Tensei. Without a doubt, the final winner was Dustless. After so many years, my long-cherished wish finally came true. Looking at the only remaining palace in front of him, Dustless was full of smiles, and he couldn't help but walk faster. So. At this time, the passers-by suddenly appeared and blocked Dustless's path like a city wall. Women. Looking at the girls who suddenly appeared in front of him, Dustless frowned and said coldly, "It's just a group of created Zanpakuto. If you don't want to die, get out of my way." These girls in front of him were all hot girls, and they were all created by Wang Yu. But this group of people obviously didn't have the consciousness of the weak, and they completely ignored Dustless's words. Let our master out or else. Poochie. The ferocious saber wind shot out, and before the girl with the hot figure could finish speaking, she was chopped into two halves, and blood flowed out non-stop. Hado 54. Waste Flame. It seemed that the corpse that was split into two was too much of an eyesore. Wu Chen directly turned it into powder, completely ignoring the hostile eyes of the rest of the girls, like a gust of wind passing by. Sisters, do it! Someone shouted, and the group of created Zanpakuto girls all pulled out their swords and looked at Dustless. The ignorant are fearless. Turning his head faintly and glancing at this group of impassioned Zanpakuto, Wu Chen shouted softly, and the whole world returned to calm again. Hado 90. Black Coffin. The black light from the sky shredded the girls, and they all fell to the ground with wounds all over their bodies. Seriously. Firstly, you don't have strength. Secondly, you don't have beauty. Thirdly, you even dared to launch a sneak attack on me. Why wouldn't I kill you? Dustless shook his head and continued to walk towards the Spirit King Palace. He did not even look at the corpse. Inside the dark hall, the entire world of the Spirit Feng Palace had been reduced to rubble. Only this place remained unscathed. Of course, this was Dustless's intention. Boom, boom, boom. The room suddenly began to tremble. A cold, murderous aura shattered everything in the room. So it's here. A figure walked out from the darkness. Looking at the Spirit King embedded in a special seal, Dustless could not help but sigh. King of the Grim Reaper. You're really pitiful. Your limbs were cut off and your heart and consciousness were taken away. You should be blaming this world, right? Don't worry, I'm going to liberate you now. The Spirit King was silent. He just opened his eyes quietly, no different from the vegetative person that Dustless had experienced in his previous life. It was completely treated as a fair sacrifice. Hee hee. I didn't expect it to be you. In the dark space, there was a sudden vicissitude of emotion. It was like a living fossil from thousands of years ago. It was very old. Who is it? Get out of here. Dustless was stunned and immediately burst out, looking left and right, while his observation hockey spread out. There's no one. Dustless whispered, and immediately felt that someone was watching him, and suddenly raised his head. It's you. You're the Spirit King, how can you talk? Staring, Dustless was horrified. He did not expect the Spirit King to be able to talk. Why can't I talk? The Spirit King frowned and said very doubtfully. This? Asked by the Spirit King, Dustless was speechless. He quietly looked at him, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. You're a Grim Reaper? The Spirit King looked at Dustless unkindly. His eyes were obviously filled with murderous intent, and shouted, I will not let you go. Poochie. Wu Chen was silent. What he got in response was a slash. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, Soul Society and the modern world trembled fiercely, including Hueco Mundo, as if there was a large earthquake of tens of magnitude. A huge narrow gap appeared, stretching for more than 10 kilometers. Even the Spirit King Palace in front of him was the same. The space was gradually damaged, and there were signs of collapse. It seems that killing the Spirit King will really cause the world to collapse. Perceiving the vibration of the outside world, Dustless whispered, and even the 6 paths Chibaku Tensei he released had a huge gap. Bastard, you dare to use me as a test subject? The Spirit King was furious, his eyes fiercely staring at Dustless, and roared, Make it clear to me, I am your Grim Reaper, how dare you? Shut up, you idiot! With a touch of anger in his eyes, Dustless directly picked up a piece of small step to seal the Spirit King's mouth, and sneered, You will become a part of my body, and I will be the new Spirit King. Without waiting for the Spirit King to speak, Dustless's eyes changed, and a majestic spiritual power invaded his mind, instantly crushing his memory, and turned him into a vegetative existence. Anyway, as long as the Spirit King was not dead, everything would be fine. Taking out the pearl prepared before, it was blue, similar to the Hogyoku, but there was an essential difference. Dustless planned to integrate the Spirit King's whole body into it, and then fuse with the pearl, directly stuffing the Spirit King into his body. Thinking about it made him feel cold, but Dustless could accept such a method. Chapter 1195. Raising his head to look at the Spirit King's body, Dustless still chose this method, stuffing a big man alive into his body. Thinking about it, Dustless felt a chill and uneasiness, his whole body involuntarily having goosebumps. A strange black liquid emerged from his 5 fingers. The moment Dustless touched Soul King, he began to peel off layer by layer, turning into a black liquid that dripped into the ball prepared by Dustless. In the blink of an eye, the blue ball turned black, surrounded by a black fog, looking quite scary, especially Dustless's face began to turn black. Or it could be said that it was dyed black by the black fog. It's really slow. Watching the liquid drop by drop into the ball, Dustless couldn't help but whisper. At the same time, a crazy plan appeared in his mind. 2 of Uraba's guards are Soul King's left arm and heart. You could take Jushiru as Soul King's right arm, as long as I integrate them into this ball. Thinking about it, Wu Chen was incomparably passionate. Both of his eyes glowed and shot out a green light of greed. Once the severed body of the Spirit King was completely integrated into it, the power of this main body would also inevitably receive a dimensional upgrade. At that time, Dustless's strength will naturally increase. Let's wait a few days. Looking at Soul King slowly liquefying, Dustless sighed. In the Black Void Palace, Aizen Sosuke always sat on his throne with a sour face. Jin, did you find out the source of the tremors? Aizen suddenly opened his eyes and looked down at the smiling Ikamaru Jin. Aizen quietly asked. Not yet. Jin shook his head. The light tone and the fox's smile made people can't help but doubt whether it was true or not. But, remembering Aizen Sosuke's request, Ikamaru Jin replied, but just as Sosuke Aizen thought, it's not just Hueco Mundo, but also the modern realm and Soul Society. This is impossible. Sosuke Aizen showed a rare look of astonishment and said in a heavy tone, it shouldn't be that Soul King died. If he suddenly fell, the entire world would slowly collapse. Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, and the main world all had the same cracks, but they didn't collapse. It might be a coincidence. Aizen lowered his head and muttered. In fact, he himself was full of doubts. If it was a coincidence, then it was too strange. Soul Society, the modern world, and Hueco Mundo all shook at the same time. Just thinking about it made Aizen feel that it was illogical. What are the recent movements of the Soul Society? Changing the topic, Aizen thought of Dustless, his nightmarish old enemy. Ever since he appeared, Aizen had been abandoned by Urahara Kisuke. Dustless was his #1 enemy. I don't know either. The newly appointed Captain Dustless hasn't shown up for the 2 captain meetings recently. It's all left to Captain Uno Flower to handle. Jin shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. In these 5 days, Wu Chen had been inside the Spirit King, slowly dissolving the Spirit King's body. His head was full of sweat, and he did not dare to be careless. If the Spirit King died, the entire world would slowly be annihilated. Phew! It's finally done. After who knows how long, excited laughter came from the real Soul King Palace. Looking at the black sphere in his hand, Dustless was filled with anticipation. He had already merged Soul King's entire body into it in liquid form, and it didn't hurt his organs. The only difference was that he was living in a vegetative state. Next, it's the last step. Looking at the black sphere in his hand for a while, Dustless gritted his teeth and stuffed it into his chest without hesitation. Boom boom boom. Endless Ryatsu aftermath broke out from the black ball, and the majestic force began to go berserk. Almost instantly, all the tissues and cells in Wu Chen's body disintegrated. His internal organs were crushed by the torrent in an instant. Cough cough. His face was as pale as snow, and his body was on the verge of collapse. Dustless's mouth also had some dark red bloodstains, and the bones in his body seemed to have softened. He didn't have the slightest strength, and it was very strenuous to support his body. Now, even an ordinary human could kill him hundreds of times. It's just a sphere, and it can actually resist. His weak cheeks emitted a touch of yin qi, and Dustless's majestic spiritual power invaded the black sphere. The boundless spiritual power was almost endless. As a 10-tailed Dustless, all aspects of his attributes could be said to be perfect. About half an hour later, the black sphere's color changed greatly, and was replaced by a dazzling golden light. Sacred and majestic, the earth-shaking spiritual pressure floated out from Dustless's body. Boom boom boom. The 6 paths, Chibaku Tensei, that was previously heavily injured, was directly torn into pieces by the impact of the supreme momentum. The huge meteorite turned into fragments and fell to the ground. Dustless's temperament and appearance also changed dramatically, and he fully controlled the power of Soul King. Chapter 1196. The high-density Ryatsu continued to erupt, and the void around Dustless was all torn apart. The violent energy ripples spread wildly, and the places affected would make a buzzing, trembling sound, as if begging for mercy. Even the quality of the spiritual pressure erupting from Dustless was so high that it flowed all over the ground, dyeing the clean ground golden. It was very beautiful. The space behind Dustless was directly shattered, and endless black light shot out. It was like the abyss of the universe, filled with the gravitational force that could destroy the world. It was the graveyard of all living things. This feeling is really great. Carefully experiencing the earth-shaking changes, Dustless slightly moved his muscles and bones, and the pleasant rhythm was very crisp and pleasant to the ears. No wonder Yhwach loves Spirit King so much. This cheating device is even more powerful than Hogyoku. Looking at the black bead on his chest, Dustless smiled complacently. The Ryatsu in his body was dozens of times stronger than before, even 100 times more exaggerated. The Hogyoku was made from the souls of Shinigami and Hollow selected by Aizen and Kisuke Urahara. The Spirit King was almost the collection of all souls, so it was more powerful than the Hogyoku. Boom boom boom. At this time, the palace Dustless was in suddenly suffered a heavy blow, and 2 giant holes were chiseled out. The bright morning sun shone in, and Dustless instinctively closed his eyes. In a trance, he saw a few figures descending from the sky. Where did you hide the first soldier of the War Master Division? Several members of Team Zero who escaped from 6 Paths, Chibaku Tensei, questioned. They noticed that Soldier 1's spiritual pressure suddenly disappeared, and there was no trace of him in the world of Spirit King Palace. You are talking about that monk, sorry. He has been eliminated by me. Dustless stretched and smiled casually. You! Kirin Temple Tenshilang looked around, squinting his eyes as if he was looking for something. After a while he screamed, Bastard, where is Lord Spirit King? Why is Lord Spirit King not here? These words shocked all the members of Team Zero, and they all opened their eyes wide to look for traces of the Spirit King. After a few seconds, they received a terrifying result. The Spirit King had already disappeared. You don't have to look anymore. I've replaced the previous guy and become the new Spirit King. Dustless reminded them out of goodwill when he saw that they were looking for him with distressed faces. Impossible. Qilin Temple's Tian Sherlang and Air Meiwu's Wang Yu angrily roared in unison. Their voices were a bit sharp and were neither fish nor fowl. When they were raised, it was extremely frightening. Their faith collapsed, and the 2 of them looked like they had gone insane. Looks like you won't listen. Glancing at the 2 with pity, Dustless's eyes fell on Sayaso Tongsai and Shidoro Senju Maru. He opened his chest, revealing a black pearl. Those 2 boorish men don't know what's good for them. You 2 should know what this is, right? Even if you 2 don't know, your bodies should be able to sense it. Hearing this, the 4 of them stared at the black pearl on Dustless's chest. At this moment, it was shining, extremely bewitching, like a gem shining with gorgeous colors. This is your Lord Spirit King. He has already submitted to me and become a part of my body's strength. With a proud smile, Dustless continued to attack. The eyes of the several people were dull and lifeless. Obviously, they were still in shock from the fall of the Spirit King. Especially after hearing that the first soldier of the Hyabet Division had fallen, it was as if they had lost their backbone. Their eyes were full of confusion about the future. The Spirit King's power in their body had a reaction to the black pearl on Dustless's chest, which also meant that the Spirit King had already become a part of Dustless. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Air Meiwu's Wang Yu and Qilin Temple's Tian Sherlang suddenly launched an attack. Taking advantage of Dustless's carelessness, the 2 easily subdued Dustless, and their Zanpakuto were pressed against Dustless's throat. Ayaya, it seems that you guys still intend to be stubborn. Originally, I thought that after I became the new Spirit King, I could make you guys wake up. Now, it seems that my thoughts are somewhat naive. Dustless said leisurely. Then, he looked at the 2 people provocatively and coldly snorted. You guys can make your move now. After killing me, you can immediately take revenge for the first soldier of the Hyabet Division. However, if you feel that you can bear the consequences, Feel free to come. The spirit pressure in his body was still, and chakra also didn't show any signs of erupting. Dustless didn't make any attack or defense, and only provoked Qilin Temple's Tian Shilang and Air Mei Wu's Wang Yu. You think we don't dare? Narrowing his eyes, Air Mei Wu's Wang Yu coldly asked. Of course not. It's up to you whether you want to kill me or not. Your hands are on your body, and I can't control you. However, before we act, I have something to remind the both of you. Now that I have tamed the Spirit King from a certain point of view, I have already merged with that bead, which is also your Spirit King. If I die, he will not be able to escape. You should know what the consequences of a Spirit King's death are. Finished speaking, Dustless smiled proudly. He didn't believe that Qilin Temple's Tian Shilang and Air Mei Wu's Wang Yu would kill him. They couldn't afford the disastrous consequences after the death of the Spirit King. But obviously, Dustless made a mistake this time. He only saw a blade light coming. Humph, don't underestimate people too much. Pay the price for your arrogance. Air Mei Wu's Zanpakuto swept over. Qilin Temple's Tian Shilang also did the same. Both of them made their move at the same time. Courting death. His whole body shook, and the vast spirit pressure surged. Just as he was about to kill the two people, someone else cleaned up the mess for Dustless. Pucci! Pucci! Air Mei Wu's Wang Yu and Qilin Temple's Tian Shilang were hit in the back, leaving a huge hideous wound. The two people's attack stagnated, and they fell to the ground. Seeing this scene, not only Air Mei Wu's Wang Yu and Qilin Temple's Tian Shilang were stunned. Dustless was also stunned. They looked at the culprit. Chapter 1197. It happened so suddenly that not only Dustless was stunned and sluggish, but the victims, Wang Yu Nyamiya and Tenshiro of Qilin Temple, also turned their heads in anger out of shame. It's you two. Dustless stared blankly at the person who released the black blade. It turned out to be Shura Thousand-Hand Maru and Sayaso Tongsai. Bastard, what do you two mean by this? Wang Yu Nyamiya endured the stinging pain all over her body and almost roared out. Is he the one who murdered Lord Spirit King? He is the enemy of death. Now we have already lost. You two are the ones who are rebellious, and you two are also the ones who are stubborn. He has become Spirit King, and you two still want to kill him. If this isn't rebellious, then what is? Looking at Dustless with a complicated look, Sayaso Tongsai's heart was filled with emotions. His mixed feelings couldn't hide the bitterness in his heart. The former enemy had become their god in one fell swoop. The change was not small. Ayaya, I thought Squad Zero was an idiot who stuck to the rules. Now, there are finally two enlightened ones. Dustless said with a smile. She skipped to the side of Shura Thousand-Hand Maru. When she was about to get closer to him, her cold voice made Dustless's smile freeze. What I acknowledge is your identity as the Spirit King. As for you as a person, forget it. Shura Thousand-Hand Maru's tone was indifferent. Looking at Dustless, there was only endless coldness. It could be seen that if it wasn't for the identity of Spirit King, she would have already brandished her blade to kill Dustless. It's really cold. Seeing this, Dustless could only sigh helplessly. He had used her time and time again, so it was natural for her to be hostile to him. What about you two? Are you going to continue to oppose me or choose to surrender? Turning his head to look at the pale Wang Yu Nyamiya and Tenshiro of Qilin Temple, Dustless asked indifferently. If you choose to continue to resist, only death awaits you. Wang Yu Nyamiya and Tenshiro of Qilin Temple couldn't help but fly into a rage. Their red eyes stared at Shura Thousand-Hand Maru and Sayaso Tongsai at the same time. The two of you actually betrayed Team Zero. Have you forgotten the original concept of Team Zero? The purpose of your existence is to protect the Spirit King, and now you are turning against a traitor? Qilin Temple's Tianqilang was both angry and shocked. Even Dustless turned a deaf ear to him. The ones who don't understand the situation are the two of you. He is the Spirit King now. You should know the consequences of killing him. Shudoro Senju Maru said expressionlessly. Her tone revealed a trace of headache. Her former enemy had instantly become the supreme leader of their Shinigami. This huge contrast made her somewhat dizzy. If we can't kill him, then we should seal him. The Spirit King's instinct is just a tool to maintain the entry and exit of Soul Society's souls. Clenching his teeth, Qilin Temple's Tian Sherlang stubbornly said. TSK, TSK, TSK. I've just become the new Spirit King, and I'm already witnessing Team Zero's internal strife. To think that I would be able to witness such a rare scene of fratricide. The heavens are really kind to me. Casually finding a stone to sit down, Dustless smiled. His words made Qilin Temple's Tian Sherlang and Nyamia's Wang Yu go berserk. The culprit of everything is this bastard. I'll show you now. Nyamia's Wang Yu roared. After that, he rushed forward with his Zanpakuto. The me 10 minutes ago and the me now are completely different. There is no need to even make a move to deal with the two of you. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and an explosive spiritual pressure broke out of his body. Boom, boom, boom. In the void, a spectacular spiritual flame burned. The sky was filled with majestic golden light. Endless majesty floated from Dustless's body. Ka. Nyamia's Wang Yu suddenly stopped. He looked at the indifferent Dustless in horror. His whole body trembled uncontrollably. His skin began to slowly ooze blood, and his body made popping sounds. All the bones in his body were crushed by Dustless's spiritual pressure. This is my current strength. Do you think you are still qualified to seal me? Dustless joked. Then, seeing the murderous intent and hatred in Nyamia's eyes, he made up his mind and even more violent spiritual pressure spurted out. Bang, bang, bang. Nyamia's Wang Yu, who couldn't bear the pressure, exploded and turned into a pile of blood mist. Even his bones were not left. His whole body was crushed by Dustless. Gulp. Seeing this, Shidoro Senjumaru and Seo Tongsai choked and looked at Dustless with awe and horror. The eyes that were indifferent to all living things were obviously the legendary god. All life in his eyes were just insects that could be destroyed with a raise of his hand. He just crushed Nyamia's Wang Yu with spiritual pressure. You bastard! I'm going to kill you! Seeing that his companion and friend of many years was killed, Kirin Temple Tenchilu went berserk on the spot and rushed up with his strange Zanpakuto. I thought that killing him could wake you up and see the reality clearly. Now it seems that my idea was too naive. Killing Nyamia's Wang Yu didn't wake you up. Instead, it backfired. Dustless said with pity. Team Zero was a qualified thug. If they were obedient, Dustless didn't want to kill them. But some people always like to court death. A white flash appeared on his finger. Dustless aimed at the head of Kirin Temple Tenchilu, and the light whistled out. Fourth path of destruction. White thunder. The insignificant white thunder turned into a rolling divine thunder that covered an area of 100 meters in diameter. The speed was also very fast and disappeared in a flash. Boom, boom, boom. Kirin Temple Tenchilu disappeared, and not even the remains of his bones were left. It was even more thorough than Nyamia's Wang Yu. After obtaining the power of Spirit King, Dustless's strength was enhanced. Seeing these living creatures, there was only one feeling: to destroy them with a raise of his hand. Chapter 1198. This unstoppable strength made Shidoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai feel a chill. They were both stunned, and their scalps were numb. The power of White Thunder could be so powerful that it killed the members of Team Zero without any effort. Are you surprised? To be honest, I'm also surprised. Dustless showed a faint smile, feeling the vigorous power fluctuation in his body, showing a fascinated and enjoying expression. This endless Ryatsu made him feel as if he was floating in the clouds, which was very comfortable. And this is only a part of the Spirit King. His 4 limbs and one of his hearts are still drifting outside. We must retrieve them. Ignoring the surprise of Shidoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai, Dustless muttered to himself. I'm warning you, you are now Spirit King, and you are not allowed to leave Spirit King Palace. Shidoro Senjumaru said with a straight face. The dignified Spirit King, the chisel of all living things, once Dustless as the Spirit King, died, they would all be unlucky. This was also one of the fundamental reasons why Team Zero worked hard to protect Spirit King. Hee. Hearing this, Dustless smiled strangely and said flatteringly, Since you admit that I am Spirit King, then you should help me. Sayaso Tongsai and Shidoro Senjumaru frowned. Especially at this moment, the Ryatsu hidden in Sayaso Tongsai's body was completely used up. The recovered hot body was particularly attractive, as if there was a gravitational force that attracted Dustless's gaze. This pervert! Shidoro Senju cursed in his heart, secretly scolding Dustless for eating in the bowl, but still thinking about the pot. He looked straight at Sayaso Tongsai's eyes. His face was full of longing, and it was really hateful in the eyes of Shidoro Senju. Cough! Dustless seemed to be aware of the resentment in Shidoro Senju eyes. He smiled and retracted his gaze, and said, "Whether it is Yukatake Jushiru, Yawatch or his guards, they are all part of Spirit King's identity. I must take them all back. You two must help me. This is an order," Dustless said with a straight face. There was no room for negotiation, and his firm tone was unshakable. "Yawatch is fine, but Yukatake Jushiru." Sayaso Tongsai and Shidoro Senju looked at each other and saw the hesitation in each other's eyes. If they killed Jushiru Yukatake for no reason, they wouldn't be able to accept it. After all, he had worked hard for Soul Society for hundreds of years. "As expected, I can't count on you guys." Dustless sighed. He was just saying it casually and did not have much hope. He could do it himself. "However, there is something that you must help me with." Dustless took a step back and said, "I think you should all understand the structure of the Hogyoku. I need you two to make a batch for me." "A batch?" Hearing this, the faces of Shidoro Senju and Sayaso Tongsai twitched. They looked at Dustless speechlessly and incredulously and asked, "Now that you have the power of Spirit King, things like Hogyoku should be dispensable. And how many Hogyoku are you talking about? It should not be as simple as one or two." Sayaso Tongsai looked at Dustless in surprise and continued to ask, "Are you saying that you are going to give the Hogyoku to others?" "Yes." Dustless nodded and said bluntly, "I have a lot of subordinates, but their overall strength is not strong. I need Hogyoku to improve their strength." "But there is no need to make a batch." Shidoro Senju was speechless, but he felt a sense of belonging to Dustless. A person who could understand and take care of his subordinates was the best. Now that the Spirit King Palace has been destroyed, it is impossible for us to make Hogyoku. Shidoro Senju and Sayaso Tongsai glared at Dustless fiercely, and then said angrily, "You are the initiator of all this." "This is very simple. The previous Spirit King is gone. Now that I have replaced him, it is natural to change to a new Spirit King Palace." Hearing this, Dustless smiled, and a ball flew out from his hand, slowly floating in the air, and constantly expanding. "What is this thing?" Sayaso Tongsai was curious and immediately asked, "Are you planning to use this to recreate the Spirit King?" "Why can't I?" Wuxia didn't fight back and asked. Immediately, his will erupted, and the void continued to expand, turning into an unprecedentedly large sphere. Everything that the truth-seeking jade came into contact with outside collapsed, and inside the truth-seeking jade, an ideal world was slowly taking shape according to Dustless's will. In the blink of an eye, the interior of the truth-seeking jade formed a retro world of pavilions, rockery, and flowing water. There were even a few migratory birds swaying in the sky, and rare rabbits rolling and playing on the green grass. How is this possible? Shidoro Senju and Sayaso Tongsai opened their mouths wide, and their jaws were about to dislocate. Both of them belonged to the category of mad scientists, and they had endless curiosity about unsolved mysteries. "Is this also the ability that you got by swallowing the Spirit King?" Sayaso Tongsai asked in shock. Her eyes were full of stars as she looked at Dustless. She was panting, and the majestic snow-capped mountain in front of her was completely exposed. Seeing Sayaso Tongsai's admiring eyes, Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He really couldn't be happy, and he was afraid that she was thinking of dissecting him at this moment. "This is one of my own abilities, and it has nothing to do with the Spirit King." Dustless put his hands into the wide captain's sleeves and said calmly, "The name of this technique is called the Truth-Seeking Jade, or to be precise, the Expanding Truth-Seeking Jade. It can create and destroy the world, and it is my unique technique." Chapter 1199. Time flew by, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Dustless had been staying in the Spirit King Palace. There were only 3 people in the big world: Dustless, Shidoro Thousand Hand and Sayaso Tongsai. "Thousand Hand I need to catch some hollow souls. I will leave the rest of the tasks to you for the time being," Sayaso Tongsai said. The development of Hogyoku required a lot of souls, especially the mass production of Hogyoku, which required more souls. Their hasty preparation was not enough. No problem, leave it to me. Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru nodded his white chin lightly. He was quite confident in his work efficiency and gave Sayaso Tongsai a reassuring look. The latter nodded gently and left. Only Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru was left in the laboratory. She has already left. You can come out even if you dawdle for a long time, my spirit king. Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced at the figure in the dark corner. He said disdainfully and sarcastically, "Your hiding technique is too bad." "No, no," Dustless said a few times in a row. He smiled meaningfully and said, "If I don't expose my aura, Sayaso Tongsai won't be able to detect it. She will not leave. I am smart." "So what?" Hearing this, Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru glanced at Dustless and then continued the experiment in his hand. He asked coldly, "Is this the reason why you are sneaking around?" Dustless's old face was embarrassed. Peeping at others was indeed a shameful thing. Hee. After experiencing several worlds, Dustless had already been trained to be thick-skinned. He immediately approached Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru and said with a smile, "Don't make it sound so bad. After all, we are nothing." Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru interrupted Dustless directly and sneered ruthlessly, "I will treat it as if I was bitten by a dog in the past. Don't think too much." "What did you say?" Hearing this, Dustless's face turned green. He stared at Shidoro Senju Maru's curvaceous body, and a red light flashed in his eyes as he said, "Then I will continue to bite you now." The Ryatsu in his body vibrated, and a ray of light shot out. The clothes on Shidoro Senju Maru's body burst open, revealing his pure white body. Wuxia suddenly changed his mind. His clear eyes turned red in an instant. When dealing with some women, he could take care of them and melt them with his passionate heart. But when dealing with such a virtuous woman like Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru, he could only crush her dignity. Panting heavily, he originally wanted to resolve the grudge between him and Shidoro Thousand-Hands Maru. Who would have thought that this woman would be so insensible? Since being submissive was useless, he could only continue to use force. He would trample her until she submitted. "Bastard, what are you trying to do?" After staring blankly for a moment, Shidoro Senju Maru shrieked, his tone filled with endless indignation and killing intent. He didn't even think about it as he directly attacked Dustless with a powerful move. Heido number 88, Flying Long Strike Thief, Sky-Shaking Thunder Cannon. A thick beam of light shot out. It happened suddenly and without any accident. It blasted Dustless and set off a huge explosion. What kind of monster is this? Seeing the figure that was safe and sound in the flames, Shidoro Senju Maru's hope instantly fell through. Dustless was blasted by the number 88 Heido, and he didn't have any defense, but he himself was completely fine. Only his clothes had some traces of being burned. "What did you do just now?" Dustless, who recovered, asked. He turned his head and looked at the beam of light that flashed behind him. With a straight face he said, "Attacking Spirit King is a big problem, now it's an even bigger crime." Finished speaking, Dustless pounced on Shidoro Senju Maru. "Bastard, let go of me." Shidoro Senju Maru's face was red as she struggled violently. She used all her strength to resist Dustless, but the effect was minimal. In front of absolute strength, her meager strength was not worth mentioning to Dustless. In a short while, she had exhausted all her strength and could only let this crazy hungry wolf in front of her do whatever he wanted. "I like to deal with women like you who don't know what's good for them." Putting down Shidoro Senju Maru, Dustless said with an unruly look, "To deal with people who don't know what's good for them, the method is very simple, and that is to be more violent than them." "You? Woo-woo." Before she could finish, Dustless violently sealed Shidoro Senju Maru's big mouth, and his hands moved freely. Until 12 hours later, Dustless walked out of the laboratory with a refreshed look. There are always so many people who overestimate themselves. They know that resistance is useless, but they still struggle. I don't understand. In the rebuilt Spirit King Palace, Dustless shook his head and sighed. It had been many days, and he had to return to Soul Society. In the sky above Soul Society, a white light flashed and formed a portal. Dustless, wearing the captain's Haori, stepped out. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As if sensing the anomaly, several black figures appeared in the sky. They were the members of the 2nd Division of the Qing Army. Ayaya. Captain Xiaofan. You're really loyal. You're so loyal that I want to pass the position of the next captain to you. Looking at the confused Xiaofan, Dustless teased. Captain, aren't you in Soul Society? Xiaofan frowned and asked. She didn't hear that Dustless left. Oh right, before I left a doppelganger in Soul Society. Dustless looked at Xiaofan with interest and smiled. I just came back from Hueco Mundo to gather information. Hueco Mundo. Xiaofan was stunned, and her expression changed. Are you saying that Aizen Sosuke is going to attack Soul Society? Dustless smiled mysteriously and said softly. You're right, Aizen Sosuke is going to attack us in the next few days. Hurry up and gather the captains for a strategy meeting. Chapter 1200. At this moment, in Soul Society's 1st Division, no one spoke, and the atmosphere was particularly oppressive. In the spacious team house, a group of team leaders gathered. Everyone looked at Wu Chen from the corner of their eyes. They didn't understand what was going on and looked at Wu Chen. This guy always refused to attend the team leaders' meeting previously. It was only this time that he took the initiative to request for a meeting. Cough, cough, cough. Seeing everyone's eyes fixed on him, Dustless deliberately coughed twice, raised his voice, and said loudly. Everyone, to be honest, the reason why I refused the captain's meeting these days is because I was secretly investigating Sosuke Aizen. I accidentally found that he was secretly making dozens of Aka's errand cars in Hueco Mundo. After the completion, Sosuke Aizen will start a war with us. Wu Chen's words stirred up thousands of ripples. All the captain's spirits were shaken, and their faces were full of astonishment. What kind of concept was dozens of Akas? They could easily fight with Soul Society and not be at a disadvantage, and they could even defeat all the Shinigami. Even if the Aka's errand cars were not as good as captain-level Shinigami, they could easily fight captains, and both sides generally had a 5-5 win rate. Captain, did you make a mistake? As soon as Dustless finished speaking, someone immediately interrupted him. Mayuri, who was standing at the end, stepped forward and immediately questioned. Recently, the 12th Division has been paying attention to the movements of Hueco Mundo and Hueco Mundo. We didn't see a large group of Akas gathering, and Hueco Mundo shouldn't have that many Akas for Sosuke Aizen. After these words, all the captains nodded in agreement. This old guy. Seeing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly, and a flash of displeasure appeared in his eyes. This excuse was, of course, made up by him. His purpose was to trick the few captains he didn't like into going to Hueco Mundo, and then secretly kill them. Out of sight, out of mind. Captain Ye's words are reasonable. Toshiro met Dustless's gaze and analyzed wisely. Hueco Mundo's strength is obvious. If there really were so many Ajuchas, Aizen would have attacked Soul Society a long time ago. The head captain must have seen Aizen's Shurkai, Mirror Flower, Water Moon, and was tricked by him. It's just a catoptric deflection. How can I be deceived by him? His ability doesn't work on me. Otherwise, our Grim Reaper team would have been wiped out. Dustless immediately retorted. He was rather disgusted by this snobbish brat who was always pointing the spear at him. Everyone. I think the head captain's words make sense. A pleasant voice spoke up for Dustless. Don't forget, Aizen Sosuke killed the captain. If he can create a miracle once, why can't he create a second one? Not to mention a few dozen Ajuchas, even if he can create a few dozen Vastolord, I'll still believe it. After all, that man's ability is there. The person who spoke was Uno Hua Lai. Her words were very convincing, and everyone could not help but sigh in admiration. I think the head captain has a point. Hirako Shinko, who was recently promoted to the 5th Division captain by Dustless, said, Everyone may not know this, but Sosuke Aizen did indeed create a Vastolord. The black ovoid that attacked Captain Ishin was created by him. Previously, there were still some people who had doubts. Now, after hearing this, everyone was convinced. Then what do? We can't just sit here and wait. Toshiro said anxiously. Captain Toshiro, don't worry. I already have a plan. Dustless looked at Uno Hanaretsu with satisfaction and smiled. The plan is simple. Gather a group of captains and sneak attack Aizen Sosuke. It's best if we can get his Hogyoku back. Even if we can't, we have to kill those Ajuchas. It's best if we can kill them all. As for the candidates, Dustless's eyes flashed with cold-killing intent as he said, "This time, Captain Itsuki, Captain Toshiro, and Captain Unohana will participate." In order to avoid being suspected, Wu Chen even added Unohua Lai into the list. Wu Chen stared at the captains again and again. Finally, his eyes fell on a middle-aged man with pale hair and a dispirited look. A touch of passion flashed in his eyes. "Captain Yukitake, you should also go this time." Dustless naturally wanted the Soul King's right arm in Yukitake Jushiru's body. "Yukitake is also going?" Shuinsue's face flashed with worry. Yukitake Jushiru was suffering from a serious illness. Just as he was about to refuse, Yukitake Jushiru spoke first. "No problem, head captain." Yukitake Jushiru's words sealed Shuinsue's thoughts. He could only lower his head and give up. After all, this was his own matter, and it was not Shuinsue's place to say anything. However, there was always someone who meddled in other people's business. "Of course, this kind of thing needs me." A rough voice came out, and everyone felt a pain in their old face. This voice was like a thorn, making people feel uncomfortable all over. "I wanted to let you live for a while, but you seem to like to die." Dustless's face turned cold as he mocked Zaraki in his heart. He was afraid that this brat Zaraki really thought he was invincible. He secretly thought, "But this is also good. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. I'll send you master and disciple to heaven so that Yamamoto won't say I'm not kind." In that case, Captain Zaraki will also go. I hope you can give me a satisfactory answer. Don't let me down. Chapter 1201. Glancing at Zaraki Kenpachi, Dustless sighed in pity. Originally, he had planned to borrow this young man's strength to deal with Aizen, but now that he wanted to die, Dustless naturally couldn't go against his will. "Is there anything else you want to say?" Dustless looked around and asked. The captains didn't say anything, they just lowered their heads and thought about the current situation. "Don't worry, as long as we are united, we will be invincible." Wu Chen, whose face was flushed, raised his arms and shouted, trying to stir up the atmosphere at the scene. "This guy is really, sigh." Unohana Retsu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, she could only sigh in her heart. The biggest disaster of Soul Society was Dustless, but now he was shamelessly shouting such nonsense. How abominable. "Woman, what do you know? This is called being smart." Dustless seemed to have noticed Unohana Retsu's gaze, he thought disdainfully. "If I don't play these people to death, I won't have a good life as a captain." These people jumped out every day to disgust Dustless. Just thinking about it made him feel disgusted. "Captain, isn't it a bit inappropriate to attack rashly?" Shuki Byakuya, who was always silent, asked. After all, the enemy was Aizen Sosuke, a peak existence that could kill a captain. He was unparalleled in intelligence and strength. They might suffer a double loss. "TCH, if you are afraid, you can withdraw." Zaraki curled his lips and mocked. "If you're afraid, I'll deal with the enemies assigned to you." Zaraki Kenpachi's eyes glowed with a burning halo. He was fearless as if nothing was worth mentioning in front of him. He was extremely arrogant. "What did you say?" Shuki Byakuya's tone was cold. Obviously, he wasn't a kind person, he didn't like this uncouth guy, he even hated him. Zaraki was one of those arrogant people who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Zaraki smiled ferociously, he said even more arrogantly. "What I want to say is, even if you are a captain, you have nothing to do with that group of trash." "Enough, all of you shut up." Dustless's eyes emitted a cold glint. Seeing that Stone was in a bad situation, he immediately stopped him and said, "This is a captain's meeting, not a market for the two of you to chatter endlessly. This matter ends here. In 3 days, follow my orders and attack Hueco Mundo." Dustless and Unohua were in the 4th Division's quarters, or more accurately, on Onohua's bed. Occasionally, they would let out languid moans that would make one's face turn red. "Humph, since you came back from the Spirit King Palace, does that mean you wiped out Team Zero?" Unohua Lai lay quietly in Dustless's embrace. The two of them were completely naked as they hugged each other, feeling the warmth of each other's body. Their hearts were filled with satisfaction. Of course, that stinky monk, Qilan Temple's Tian Shilang, and Heir Mei Wu's Wang Yu, those 3 pedantic people have all been sent to heaven by me. As for Sayako Kirusi and Shura Thousand-Hand Maru, I've already tamed them, and they are currently mass-producing Hogyoku for me. Hearing this, Una Hualai's gentle face had a faint smile, and the corner of her eyes had a hint of mockery. Her black-bellied personality was completely exposed. What's with that expression? Dustless was instantly speechless. Una Hualai gave him a headache, and he sighed. I did have that kind of relationship with Shura Thousand-Hand Maru as you imagined, but I had no choice. I had to leave the spatial coordinates in her body, or else I would never be able to reach the Spirit King Palace. Don't interrupt me. I don't care about such a small matter. Una Hualai glared at Dustless and asked expectantly, how should I address you now? Head Captain, or is it more appropriate to call you Spirit King? So that's what you're asking. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with understanding, and he looked at Una Hualai mockingly, and said, that's not important, I'm the invincible little husband. Without giving Una Hualai any time to breathe, Dustless pounced on her again like a hungry wolf. The sky of Hueco Mundo was cold, and it was always accompanied by a sandstorm. The sky twisted, and a few figures appeared. Katiki Byakuya, Nishiya Toshiro, Zaraki Kenpachi, and Una Hualai were all there. Did we come to the wrong place? Nishiya Toshiro was disappointed. There were no greater voids within a few dozen kilometers, and there were only low-level voids. They were not even on the same level as Jillian, so they obviously did not come to the Empty Night Palace. No, we didn't come to the wrong place. The location that Lord Chen mentioned is indeed here. Una Hualai revealed a creepy smile as she pulled out her zanpakuto that had not been unsheathed for many years. Her entire temperament changed, and she was no longer as gentle as before. Her red eyes made her look like a bloodthirsty executioner, causing others to shiver. The captains were stunned, and they frowned as they stared at Una Hualai, who was filled with killing intent. They were not used to this temperament, as if the air they breathed into their lungs was filled with the smell of blood, and it was also filled with fatal danger. Don't you think this is a good place? Even if the most intense battle happens, no one will notice it. This is a place where no one cares about Hueco Mundo. Una Hualai, who had completely pulled out her zanpakuto, was even more shocked. The cold killing intent caused the surrounding temperature to drop by 100 times, and it was filled with a bone-chilling coldness. Also, don't you think this is a good place to bury a group of people? Chapter 1202. Anohua's abnormal behavior naturally attracted everyone's attention. Her murderous look made her look as if she was possessed by a ghost. She gave off an ominous aura. Captain Unohana, are you okay? Higashiya Nishiya asked curiously. He walked in front of Unohana Retsu and looked at her. He suddenly felt a sense of unfamiliarity. Being stared at by Unohana Retsu's emotionless eyes, he felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. This is probably the outer area of Hueco Mundo, so our target isn't here. Let's go back. Captain Unohana's reaction is abnormal. What happened? Joshua Yukatake frowned as he saw the murderous look in Unohana Retsu's eyes. He then saw Captain Nishitani walking next to Unohana Retsu and was shocked. Come back, Captain Nishitani, be careful. Pucci. Before Joshua Yukatake could finish, the merciless blade pierced through Nishitani's body. There was a long and narrow wound on his right shoulder. It went from top to bottom and almost covered his entire body. The wound was so deep that one could see the white bone underneath. Ah! He's not dead? How can a kid be so tough? Or is my zanpakuto rusty because I haven't fought for so many years? Unohana Retsu smiled gently. But in the eyes of these captains, she was scarier than a demon and more ruthless than Aizen Sosuke. Go to hell, Captain Nishitani. Unohana Retsu's unique curved zanpakuto was raised again and slashed at Toshiro Nishitani's head. Clang clang clang. Unohana Retsu's zanpakuto was stopped by someone. In the nick of time, a black shadow blocked the fatal attack for Toshiro Nishitani. Ayaya, Captain Yuki, it seems like you like to meddle in other people's business. It seems that he made the right choice to eliminate you. Unohana Retsu glanced at Yuki Byakuya's expressionless face and smiled. Hado 90 Black. Ha ha ha. Did you forget about me? Unohana. 8,000. Ryu. Behind him, the ground trembled as Zaraki Kenpachi rushed over while waving his broken zanpakuto full of sawtooth. Every time he took a step, the ground would shake along with his footsteps. My enemy right now is not you, Zaraki. Looking at Zaraki, Unohana Retsu's voice was filled with killing intent. Sensing Zaraki's Ryatsu, she said with disdain, just like before, only your Ryatsu has increased. Everything else is still the same. Stupid. Ha ha ha. Unbridled laughter resounded through the deathly silent Hueco Mundo. Zaraki Kenpachi attacked with all his strength. Just as he was about to reach Unohana Retsu, his huge body suddenly stomped on the ground. Ka ka ka. Unable to withstand the enormous weight, Zaraki's entire body flew into the air and slashed at Unohana Retsu. Wang Su's flash. The golden sphere whizzed over, and the miserable Zaraki was blown away, lying on the ground with smoke rising from his body. Captain Zaraki. Seeing this, Yukitake Jushiro was shocked. He turned to look at the direction where the flash came from. A young woman with wheat-colored skin and blonde hair was rushing over. Captain Unohana. You also betrayed Soul Society and allied with Hueco Mundo? Yukitake Jushiro looked at the heavily injured Toshiro and Zaraki Kenpachi on the ground with a heavy heart. His heart dropped from the clouds to the depths of hell. It had only been less than 2 minutes since the start of the match, but 2 captains had already been severely injured. It's not that I allied with Hueco Mundo, but that we're all on the same side. Unohua Lai replied casually and gracefully. Unohana Retsu's point of view was quite similar to Dustless's. In her eyes, there were only strong and weak. Shinigami and Great Void were not important to her. That's right, we're all on the same side. She had already accepted Dustless's orders and hurried over to ambush the captains. She had rushed over to ambush the captains. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, a few more sonic booms were heard, and 3 figures landed on the ground at the same time. That guy is getting lazier and lazier. He actually sent us to such a desolate place. Nero, Bambietta, and the other 2 Quincy masters all revealed their identities and looked at Hueco Mundo with dissatisfaction. Ayaya, you guys are the reinforcement she was talking about, right? All of you are indeed beautiful enough to cause the downfall of a city. Looks like Chen Kuan is really bad. Unohana Retsu's eyes narrowed into slits. Although she said that, her tone was actually quite jealous. Chen Kuan. Hearing this name, Yukitake Jushiro couldn't help but frown. He felt that this name was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he scratched his head. I thought that I didn't need to come over to take a look. Who knew that there would be a big problem here? The void exploded, and a black figure walked out. Dustless was floating in the sky with his hands behind his back. He quietly looked down at the people fighting below and calmly found his way. Sir Head Captain? When the defeated Shinigami captains saw Dustless appear, their faces flushed red as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They looked at Dustless with bright eyes. Even Zaraki Kenpachi, who was previously knocked out, tried his best to open his eyes and moved closer to Dustless as if he had found his pillar of support. Not good. Seeing that Dustless's eyes were as cold as Unohana Retsu's, Yukitake Jushiro's heart skipped a beat. He cursed in his heart. He couldn't help but associate Chen Kuan and Dustless with the same person. Chapter 1203. Although he was sick, it didn't mean that he was stupid. Not only that, but he was also very attentive and smart. He also had an extraordinary mind. Is that so? Captain Unohana betrayed us. I am also very sad, Captain Hifani. Looking at the approaching Nishino, Wu Chen pretended to be sad. The golden Kusanagi sword appeared in his hand, and its power was endless. It's good that Captain knows. Hearing this, Higashiya Toshiro heaved a sigh of relief. With Wu Chen, the strongest fighter, joining the battle, the scales of victory would definitely tilt towards them. Just as he was about to expose Unohana Retsu's crimes, Wu Chen looked at him with a mocking expression. Get out of the way, Captain Hifani. Captain Hifani and Captain Unohana are partners. Fujiwara Toshiro's anxious reminder came over. Hearing this, Toshiro's face froze. Suddenly, he felt a pair of emotionless eyes staring at him. His body instinctively retreated. Pucci! Nishineya Toshiro dodged quickly, but Wu Chen was even faster. It was as if he had teleported and sealed off Nishineya Toshiro's escape route. The sharp edge of Kusanagi Toshiro's Kusanagi sword cut him into pieces. Bang! Dust flew up from the ground, and blood soaked the dry desert. A young arm could be clearly seen. Ha! I missed! Wu Chen was surprised. He looked at Nishiya, who was in pain, and scratched his head embarrassedly. He apologized. Oh, I'm sorry, Captain Nishiya. I wanted to kill you once and let you die painlessly. Who knew that your reaction speed was so fast that I missed my target? But it doesn't matter. I'll make up for it now. Wu Chen apologized seriously with an apologetic face, but the sly smile on his face made people dare not compliment him. You bastard! Looking at his bleeding shoulder, Higashi Shiro was in so much pain that he wanted to die. Emerald's eyes were dim, and she was severely injured. Her body was on the verge of collapsing. Leave Hinamori to me, you can die now. He swung the Kusanagi sword again, and the golden blade slashed towards Higashi Shiro's head. Binding down number 61, 6-rod light prison. Just as Dustless was about to decapitate Higashi Shiro, 6 huge light ribbons came from all directions, stopping Dustless's attack. Seizing the opportunity, Raifan Gushito Shiro retreated in a flash, and only then was he able to avoid a great disaster. There are always a lot of reckless people. Dustless turned his head and glanced at the figure who had cast the 6-staff light prison. He said softly, Captain Shiomu, let me take care of Rukia as well. This way you can die without regrets. Ka. He lifted his foot slightly and twisted his body. Cracks appeared on the 6 huge light ribbons in the blink of an eye. When his right foot landed on the ground, the 6-rod light prison collapsed. Staring at the slender and graceful figures, Dustless's expression was cold. He gave a cold order expressionlessly. Lie, Hellable Niru. Looking at the 3 women, and then at the remaining 2, Dustless said softly, and Candace and Bambiita? Kill all the captains except Yukatake Jushiru. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. With a command, the women pounced on their enemies and launched a fierce pursuit. Suddenly, a cloud of dust rose from the ground, and a figure descended from the sky. Yukatake Jushiru raised his head, and Dustless came into his sight. His cold little face was isolated from the world, and there was no trace of emotion on it. It was as if the smiling captain was just pretending. You're already the captain, why do you still do this? Yukatake Jushiru asked with a pale face. He was puzzled by Dustless's actions. It was completely harming others without benefiting himself. He continued, if you leave us here, you can deal with Aizen-so. Don't make fun of me. Do you think you can deal with Aizen-so-suke with your strength? It's better not to say such nonsense. Besides, you're completely superfluous to me. Especially you, Captain Yukatake. Dustless stared at Yukatake Jushiru. Thinking of his identity as the right arm of the Spirit King, Dustless's eyes flashed with a touch of passion. He knew the benefits of this great tonic very well. Suddenly, Yukatake Jushiru instinctively realized that something was wrong. He asked with an ugly face. That great void called Nero was the one who came to Soul Society to deceive the captains. Could it be? Kakik. It seems that you're not an idiot. It's rare for you to be enlightened. Dustless laughed, silently admitting that it was his doing. Anyway, this group of people was about to go to heaven together. It was fine to reluctantly tell them the cause and effect of everything. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know why they died. Sakura Sajin, Kuchiki Byakuya, and Nishitani Toshiro have always been against me. Today's ending is their own fault. As for Zaraki Kenpachi, that idiot jumped in to seek death. I had no choice but to take his life. Among these people, only you are special, Captain Yukatake. Dustless's eyes emitted a fiery light. His voice rose a few decibels. You're wondering why I'm doing this to you? Let me tell you. From a certain point of view, your body contains the legendary right arm of the Spirit King, which is equivalent to a part of the Spirit King's power in my body. Therefore, how can I just watch and not do anything about it? His words made Yukatake Jushiru feel like he was struck by lightning. Huff, huff, huff. Gasping for breath, Yukatake Jushiru looked at Dustless as if he had seen a ghost. This was his biggest secret. Even his best friends, Shunsui Kayakura and Yamamoto, did not know about it. But how did this kid know? Chapter 1204. Jushuru Yucatec was shocked, and his eyes widened. His evaluation of Dustless changed again. This guy could see the future. He was like an omniscient and omnipotent existence. Actually, looking straight at Jushuru, Dustless said bluntly, within the Godii 13, you gave me a good impression. At least, you are better than that cunning old fox Shun Sui. Unfortunately, you are indirectly the right arm of the Spirit King, which means you are destined to be my enemy. Jushuru Yucatec did not deny it. It seems that the incident of dozens of ajuchas was also fabricated by you. That's right. The number of ajuchas in Hueco Mundo can be counted with one hand, let alone dozens. At this point, Dustless readily admitted everything. After all, they were a group of people who were about to die, so there was no need to fool them. Don't be so sure. You might be the one who will become the prey. A cold voice came. Dustless was stunned. He turned his head and saw a large number of cherry blossoms floating toward him. There were thousands of them, covering the entire sky. So many petals, which means there are thousands of blades. Not bad. Looking at the incoming petals, Wu Chen remained indifferent. He stood quietly in the same spot without moving. The corner of his mouth curled up as he muttered to himself. However, petals are ultimately used for appreciation. He is still too weak to use them for attack. Humph. I hope you can still be so calm later. Kukimubaya snorted and waved his hand. The number of petals increased sharply, forming an oval ball of petals that wrapped around Dustless. Everyone, we can't fight for too long. Let's hurry back to Soul Society and reveal this guy's conspiracy to the world. Jushuru Yucatec shouted and tried to retreat into the depths of Hueco Mundo. It seemed that he wanted to report this. Rifatoshi nodded and dragged his tired body away at full speed. Kuchiki Byakuya also ran away when he saw that Stonehead was in trouble. The most important thing right now was to report to Soul Society. Only Zaraki Kenpachi and Uno Hanaretsu could continue fighting. Run. You want to run in front of me? No matter how ignorant you are, you should know when to stop. Your stupidity is giving me a headache. Inside the giant flower ball, there was a disdainful laughter. Then, 6 black iron rods shot out from the flower ball and were inserted in 6 different directions. Dustless shouted from within the cherry blossom blade. 6 crimson suns formation. A transparent barrier covered the sky and the earth, and a hexagonal barrier floated out of the water. The surroundings were airtight, and Jushuru Yucatec and the others were sealed within. This is... Seeing this, Fu Zhu and the other captains' faces fell. Back in the Soul Society, Dustless had used this trick to stop Zhuozhan from escaping from the Soul Society. Even though it was as thin as a cicada's wing, its hardness was still vivid in their minds. It seems that only by killing him will this barrier be automatically removed, Shiomubaya said in a deep voice, his cold eyes filled with killing intent. Nishineya Toshiro was no exception. Even though he was already a hidden encyclopedia, he still chose hundreds of thousands of copies. It was impossible for him to just sit around and wait for death. Once we go. Bang! 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 Before he could finish his sentence, Shiomubaya suffered a heavy blow. His body shook and swayed until he finally fell to the ground. Damn expressionless man. Your opponent is me. Candace appeared like a ghost and ruthlessly kicked Shiomubaya to the ground. At the same time, Bambi Ita attacked Nishineya Toshiro. Even though the ability of the 2 girls was extracted from the sacred script, Dustless had trained them for so many years, and their combat power was still not bad. Seeing Candace and Bambi Ita, Yucatec could no longer calm down. His eyes were filled with cold murderous intent. As a Shinigami, he actually colluded with Quincher. He was even more hateful than Aizen Sosuke. Ayaya, who are you trying to scare with that look of yours? Dustless asked calmly. He was very casual, and immediately took out a star badge. The moment the fiery red halo appeared, it attracted Yucatec's attention. Not only him, but all the captains were the same. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, the sky full of petals attacked Dustless at the same time. Thousands of blades attacked him at the same time. Bang! 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 Intense spiritual pressure erupted from the inside of the cherry blossoms, and the repulsive force blew the falling petals to the sky. Dustless was perfectly fine inside. You want to deal with me with just embroidered pillows? Buzz, buzz, buzz. The star badge in his hand exuded a destructive throbbing. Looking closely, crimson flames shot out from it. Feeling the special spiritual pressure fluctuation, all the captains' faces changed greatly. Even Zaraki Kenpachi, who was fighting Unohana Retsu, was dumbfounded. This blazing spiritual pressure was unique to Ryujin Jaka. Why is the captain's Zanpakuto in your hands? Yukatake gritted his teeth and asked coldly. He was shocked and angry. He had already vaguely guessed something, and a majestic murderous intent erupted from his body. Seeing this, Dustless was too lazy to deny and directly admitted, "Yes, as you imagined, the real culprit who killed Yamamoto is actually me. Of course, I just borrowed Aizen Sosuke's hands." Hearing this, all the captains were dumbstruck as they looked at Wu Chen. They were dumbstruck. Just how many outrageous things had this bastard done? Yukate's worldview collapsed directly. If he guessed correctly, Aizen Sosuke was just a chess piece Dustless used to take away the captain's Zanpakuto. Chapter 1205. Dustless didn't try to hide anything. The truth was already out in the open. The Ryujin Jaka in his hand explained everything. There was no need for further explanation. The head captain treated you well. Why did you kill him? The head captain has protected the justice of Soul Society for thousands of years. Biting his teeth, Nishineya Toshiro clenched his fist and asked, "Treated me well? I don't know why he treated me so well. He made me a captain so that he could use my power. You captains are really pitiful. Before the Goti I-13 was formed, it was just an assassin group. There's no such thing as justice." Dustless was speechless. He hated this kind of question the most. "Kill him, Bombiata," Dustless ordered softly. He glanced at Nishineya Toshiro and shifted his gaze to Yukatake Jushiru. Bambi Itama grinned and immediately attacked Higashiya Toshiro with a smirk on his face. "How did you know that I have the right arm of the Soul King in my body?" Forcibly suppressing his shock and anger, Yukatake Jushiru asked in a hoarse voice with a touch of coldness. Something is wrong." At this moment, Dustless noticed Yukatake Jushiru's abnormality. His body was wrapped with strange black runes, looking quite mysterious and sacred. What Dustless was most concerned about was that this mysterious black power was left on the ground in a liquid form. This is... He suddenly remembered that the Soul King's power absorbed by the Soul King Palace was of the same origin as the power overflowing from Yukatake Jushiru's body. Is this the power of the Soul King's right arm hidden in your body? Dustless was indifferent. He instantly understood Yukatake Jushiru's intention. He immediately sneered. "You want to use the power of the Soul King to deal with me? Too naive. Yukatake. As a Soul King, do you think I will be defeated by these scattered powers?" Dustless snorted. His current identity was a Soul King. These powers wouldn't hurt him. How is this possible? The Black Soul King's flow avoided Dustless's body. It didn't even attack Daishu beside him. Even Quincy didn't attack. It attacked. How is this possible? I clearly released the power of the Spirit King's right arm to attack the few of you. How could? The surging power of the Spirit King could only endlessly chase after the Grim Reaper. Whether it was Unohana Retsu, Rafanya East Shiro, Zaraki Kenpachi, or Byakuya, the Spirit King torrent was only chasing after the Grim Reaper. On the other hand, Dustless and Hellable, as well as Candace and Bambietta, who were Quincy, were all fine and were completely ignored by the Psionic King torrent. Jeja. Eerie laughter came from Dustless's throat. That eerie laughter made people feel as if they were sitting on pins and needles. Hearing that laughter, the dark clouds in Yukatake Jushiru's heart became even denser. "It seems that you should know what the reason is," Fujitake Jushiru questioned as his gaze fell on Wuchen. He had released the power of the great deity, One-Eyed Spirit King's right arm. His goal was to deal with Dustless. This was also his only trump card. But who would have thought that the Spirit King torrent would only fight the Death God? Yukatake Jushiru. You are really smart all your life, but stupid this time. Do you still need me to say such a simple question? Glancing at the sluggish Yucatec Jushuru with contempt, Dustless sneered. It seems that I don't need to do anything. Byakuya and the others will be crushed by the Spirit King Torrent. Candace, tell him why the Spirit King Torrent is chasing after the Grim Reaper and ignoring us. Dustless ordered Candace to perfunctorily answer Yucatec Jushuru, while he looked at the captains who were being chased by the Spirit King Torrent with interest. The greatest enemy of the Spirit King is not Quincy or Hollow, but you, the Grim Reaper. His words made Yucatec Jushuru feel as if he was struck by lightning. His eyes were dim and blank, and he immediately refuted fiercely. Impossible, One-Eyed Spirit King's right arm great deity would not be so. I have already told you before that the Gotii 13 was an assassin group 1,000 years ago. They can do anything. Don't think that the Gotii 13 is so honorable. I can tell you clearly that the current Spirit King Torrent is the Spirit King's revenge against the Grim Reaper. Dustless recalled that Yawatch once said that the person who sealed the Spirit King was the Grim Reaper of the Soul Society. It was normal for him to vent his dissatisfaction. You can't control the power of the Spirit King's right arm, so leave it to me. Dustless leaned on Yucatec Jushuru with shining eyes. As for the captains, they would be crushed into pieces by the Spirit King Torrent sooner or later. Pucci! With a sneer, he tore the clothes in front of him, revealing a pitch-black pearl. An even denser Spirit King Torrent slowly overflowed from its master. Like Yucatec Jushuru, the Spirit King Torrent's power was also uncontrollably chasing after the Grim Reaper. Let me deal with you first. Dustless secretly decided. He forcibly reversed the Spirit King Torrent's trajectory, and controlled it to rush towards Yucatec Jushuru. Hateful. Yucatec Jushuru's face was ashen. He was shocked to find that his body was melting like ice. It was gradually being dissolved by the same Spirit King Torrent, and his body slowly disappeared. What this meant was self-evident. Dustless also had the Spirit King Torrent in his body, and it was much denser than Yucatec Jushuru's. It was so dense that it could easily devour him. After a while, Yucatec Jushuru's body gradually collapsed, turning into a pool of dark Spirit King Torrent. It immediately retreated back into the black ball in Dustless's chest. Hee hee. After devouring Yucatec Jushuru, my power has indeed increased. The next task is the Spirit King's left arm and the heart of the Spirit King. Chapter 1206. Dustless chuckled, his killing intent surging. Every bit of his strength was built on the lives of others, just like Yucatec Jushuru, who was directly devoured by the sphere inside his body. Without any power to retaliate, he was mercilessly crushed like an ant. This thing is really dangerous. Unohana Retsu retreated to Dustless's side and patted her chest in relief. She was also stunned by the power of the Soul King. Without a doubt, she had always thought that the Soul King was the guardian of the Death God. She never thought that it would only attack the Death God. Even the Death God's natural enemy, Hollow, was left to the side. This is also the reason why Yawatch hates the Death God. The existence of the Soul King is a disgrace to him, so he did not hesitate to fight the Death God until he destroyed it. Unohana Retsu nodded in agreement. Putting herself in the Death God's shoes, if she was chopped into a human stick for no reason, she would also be furious and want to destroy the other party. Let's go. They are fated to be crushed by the Soul King avalanche. I don't need to control it. This is the will of the Soul King himself. Dustless was very calm after telling the girls that there was no need to chase. In any case, the surroundings were already sealed by the 6 Crimson Yang formation, so these captains had nowhere to run. They could only be consumed by Hollow. But then again, this Soul King avalanche is really not ordinary. Unohana Retsu's eyes flashed as she sighed. The attacks of these captains were completely useless against the Soul King avalanche. Any attack would be crushed in the end. It was as if it was limitless. Humph, even if I die, I will drag you all down with me. Unable to bear the burden, Nishia Toshiro's face revealed an ominous glint as he glared at Dustless and the girls beside him like a dying beast. Ayaya, Captain Nishia, the Death God is loyal to the Soul King. What's wrong with asking you to die for him? Wu Chen asked with a smile and a teasing tone. I'm your Lord Spirit King now. Can't you die for me? You keep saying that you are loyal to me. Don't talk nonsense. Rifanu roared. His emerald eyes emitted a cold light, and the spiritual pressure in his body erupted. He was going to fight to the death. Are you going to defuse it? Seeing this, Dustless smirked and took out a special star badge. Just as he was about to throw it to Candace and Bambietta, the cherry blossoms that filled the sky attacked. Get out of the way. That's Kumu Baya's Zanpakuto ability. It's very dangerous. Those cherry blossoms are blades. Uno Hualai shouted as she retreated in a flash, creating some distance between herself and the cherry blossoms in the sky. The only one who stood still was Dustless. Looks like it has backfired. These guys have been driven to desperation. Uno Hanaretsu said darkly. Toshiro, Zaraki Kenpachi, and Byakuya seemed to have realized that their time was up. They all charged at Dustless at the same time. Ka. The cherry blossoms in the sky cut Dustless's body, but there was no substantial progress. The effect was so small that it was negligible. Dustless just stood there quietly, but the cherry blossom's blades could not hurt him at all. What ability is that? Byakuya said with an ugly expression. Dustless was silently mocking him. You guys. Looking down at Byakuya and the others, Dustless's eyes were as cold as knives. Boom boom boom. Strong vibrations erupted from Dustless's body. It was as terrifying as a flash flood. The ground trembled as cracks extended in all directions. The scene was extremely shocking. Not only the ground, the sky, and even the entire Hueco Mundo were shaking violently. What kind of move is so terrifying? Byakuya and the others exclaimed. Especially Byakuya, who was the most conflicted. Our moves are ineffective against him. He can block them with his strange ability. Ability? Hearing this, Dustless sneered and shook his head. I didn't use any ability. This is the strength of my Spirit King Devour. Your attacks won't have any effect on me. Impossible. Toshiro Hifanya and Byakuya roared at the same time. They ignored the erosion of the Spirit King collapse and used all their strength to erupt the last of their spiritual pressure. It looks like you're going to release it. Seeing this, Dustless took out 2 special star badges and handed them to Candace and Bambietta. Thank you, young master. The 2 women were stunned for a moment before thanking him excitedly. They looked at each other and naturally knew what Dustless meant. They hurriedly stepped in front of Byakuya and Toshiro Hifanya. They raised the special star badges towards the 2. Although Byakuya and Toshiro Hifanya were puzzled, they still decisively released their Zanpakuto. Bankai. Senbin Sakura Kagyoshi. Bankai. Daiguren Hyarin Maru. A majestic spiritual pressure overflowed from his body and continued to erupt. When Zanpakuto was about to completely release his true form, the rising spiritual pressure stopped erupting. Zanpakuto seemed to be dead, without the slightest reaction. On the other hand, the star badges in the hands of Candace and Bambietta were shining brightly. The 2 colors, one blue and one pink, were particularly eye-catching. That is, seeing this, Toshiro Hifanya and Byakuya felt as if they were struck by lightning, their minds stagnated, and they exclaimed at the same time. My Hyarinmaru, Senbin Sakura Kagyoshi. Looking at Hyphen Valley's Toshiro and Keiki Byakuya's old faces, Wu Chen felt an indescribable comfort in his heart. In the past, these annoying cockroaches used to go against him every day. Now that he had killed them and even took away their bankai, there was nothing else to be happy about. Candace, Bambietta, their last value has been squeezed out. Now, they are all annihilated. Chapter 1207. His cold and despairing voice gave everyone goosebumps. His cold and emotionless eyes were isolated from the rest of the world and did not contain any human emotions. He was like a god looking down on thousands of mortals. Ha ha ha. Don't forget about me. The violent Ryatsu swept the world, the golden light hit the barrier, and the deadly pressure spread. Everyone looked at the initiator in horror. Ha ha ha, you bastards, get out of my way. Using all the strength in his body, he burst out with unparalleled combat power for a short time, and even the Spirit King flowing around Zaraki stopped flowing. The golden Ryatsu erupted from his body, and it turned into a solid skeleton, protecting Zaraki from being eroded. Ayaya, it sounds impressive. Dustless stared at the skeletons covering Zaraki's body with interest and praised. But the smile on his face suddenly disappeared, and it was replaced by endless haze. Dustless said coldly, Two Kenfas are absolutely not allowed in the same era, so go to hell, Captain Zaraki. After that, Dustless began to burst out more majestic Ryatsu from his body, and the seal of the 6 Crimson Yang formation cracked. Heido number 88. Flying Dragon Strikes Thief. Extremely thick light beams gushed out, mincing the void space that they passed by, leaving behind obvious cracks. In particular, the piercing sound of the light beams moving at light speed caused one's ears to tremble. Nishiya Toshiro's ears were bleeding, and his eardrums were directly shattered. Gulp. Kukamu Baya's iceberg face was full of shock, and he was stunned for a moment. The so-called number 88 Heido? Or, after Dustless made the number 88 Heido, its power had undergone a new dimensional change, and it was even more ferocious than the number 96 Heido cremation. Boom boom boom. The light that blotted out the sky was coming toward him, and Zaraki instinctively smelled the smell of death, but his beastly character still urged him to go to the end. Holding the sword with both hands, he raised it high, and a huge golden sword pressure gathered on the Zanpakuto. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. His hands fell to the ground, and Zaraki used all his strength to throw out a slash, trying to tear apart the oncoming cold light. However, his wish was ultimately going to fail. Puchi! The moment the two rays of light collided, Zaraki's slash instantly collapsed, annihilating it and sweeping towards Zaraki in an unprecedented manner. Swish! Swish! The light soared into the sky, as if it wanted to destroy the entire world. As for Zaraki Kenpachi's figure, he had completely disappeared. His spiritual pressure, his body, and his Zanpakuto had all disappeared. They were directly evaporated by the blazing temperature of the 88th Heido. Boom boom boom. A violent explosion resounded through the clouds, and there were actually many fragments falling down. Looking up, the 6 Crimson Yang array had actually been destroyed. Ayaya, I didn't control my strength. This is going to be bad, Dustless said apologetically, causing Unohua and the others to roll their eyes. Retreat, Captain Hifanu. Keiki Baya roared and hurriedly urged the dazed Nisan Toshiro. His entire body transformed into a flash of light and disappeared without a trace. Whoosh whoosh. In the blink of an eye, the two disappeared, escaping from the 6 Crimson Yang array through the gap created by Dustless. After devouring the power of Psionic King, the technique of controlling strength seems to have become a lot worse. Dustless whispered to himself, and his sight pierced through thousands of miles in an instant, and the two escaping frantically immediately became close to him. Spiritual technique. Bright God Gate. The mahogany that fell from the sky smashed the two of them into smithereens in that short period of time. Their bodies were badly mutilated. Time passed, and dozens of days passed in a flash. Of the captains who rushed to Hueco Mundo, other than Unohua Retsu who accidentally survived, all the other captains had died. This terrible news caused the entire Soul Society to tremble. And the main culprit, the best scapegoat, was naturally Sosuke Aizen. Dustless and Unohua Retsu had colluded together, and Aizen, who was far away in Lost Nose Palace and knew nothing about it, became the scapegoat for Dustless. Head Captain, we should immediately attack Hueco Mundo. If this continues, we will be left alone sooner or later. Shunsui said with red eyes. Yukatake Jushiru's death in Hueco Mundo was a great blow to him. Kiki. If you guys knew that I was the Black Hand, would you turn me into ashes? Dustless smacked his lips and thought to himself. At this moment, the captains were united, and everyone was filled with anger. Their hatred for Sosuke Aizen had reached an unprecedented level. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but feel sorry for Sosuke Aizen. Everyone, Sosuke Aizen naturally needs to be dealt with. The hatred of the captains must be washed away with Sosuke Aizen's blood. Head captain to us. Faced with such a perfect situation, Dustless immediately used the Great Deception technique. Sosuke Aizen was definitely going to be beaten, but there was still Yawatch hiding in the dark that needed to be dealt with. Dustless knew everything about Sosuke Aizen, but he only knew a few words about Yawatch. Even after becoming a Soul King, he knew very little about Yawatch. Head captain, something big happened in the modern realm. At this moment, a Xing soldier in black suddenly knelt on one knee, looking very nervous and panting like a cow. Dustless frowned. Stand up. Is Sosuke Aizen attacking the modern realm? Chapter 1208. Hearing Dustless's words, the group of captains all exchanged glances, their faces revealing indignant expressions. Humph! Preposterous! That Aizen Sosuke was too daring. Have they become so arrogant and unbridled? He just killed several captains of Soul Society, and now he dares to attack the modern world. Sui Feng, the captain of the 2nd Division, said angrily. She might be small, but her temper was not to be underestimated. The blue spiritual pressure in her body erupted uncontrollably, almost causing the poor Xing soldier to faint. No, Shinozaki Ichigo from the modern world just sent a message. One of their teammates, the girl called Orihime Inoue, was captured by Aizen Sonosuke's men. The Xing army member who was under the pressure quickly reported, afraid that Xiaofan would accidentally use her spiritual pressure to crush him. Okay, you can go now. Wu Chen glanced at the Xing soldier and opened his mouth. Just as he was about to speak, someone else spoke first. Orihime Inoue? The woman with Shinozaki Ichigo? She seems like an ordinary human. Orihime Inoue has a healing ability and is quite powerful. I heard that she's not inferior to Captain Unohana. It's natural that Aizen Sonosuke values her. Damn it, we can't let Aizen Sonosuke get Orihime Inoue. Otherwise, we'll be in even more danger. Aizen Sonosuke is already invincible. If he has an invincible healing ability, we won't be able to do anything. Wu Chen silently listened to the group of captains' discussion, and he couldn't help but wail. This group of idiots were not suitable to be subordinates. Looking around, there were originally more than a dozen captains, but now there were only a few people left. Those who died were cheated to death, and those who defected had defected. After counting, only a few people were left. It's just a small healing ability. Why would Aizen Sonosuke care about it? This is clearly a plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. You brainless idiots. Dustless snorted in his heart, full of disdain for these self-righteous captains. However, Sosuke Aizen has made his move. It seems that the final battle is near. Rolling his eyes, Dustless's pupils pulsed with a crimson blood light. It was extremely terrifying. There was no need to stay in this world any longer. He had already obtained the Spirit King's power. Other than the few subordinates of Yawatch that he had yet to devour, he had gotten everything he wanted. Naturally, Dustless would not stay and waste his time. Since you've chosen to die, then I'll grant you your wish. After all, we're all colleagues, so I'll save you the trouble of making things difficult for me before you even arrive in hell. Dustless sneered in his heart. His face was full of righteousness as he spoke with passion. Everyone, the day of war with Hueco Mundo is about to arrive. Everyone must be filled with confidence and defeat Sosuke Aizen, this evil man who has brought disaster to the world. Understood, head captain. The Shinigami captains all nodded and promised. Their faces were all red as they secretly cursed Aizen Sosuke. After being suppressed by Aizen Sosuke for so long, they already had resentment in their hearts. They had to vent it. All right, that's all for today. You can all leave now. After a while, Dustless waved his hand and ended the meeting. His eyes were dim and he looked tired. You're too greedy, Chinkuen. In the 4th Division, Unohana Retsu's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. She said seriously, if it wasn't for your unique body structure, I'm afraid that you would have exploded from the Spirit King's power. Dustless smiled bitterly. He could vaguely see dense blood seeping out of his chest. This was caused by the Spirit King's power. It instinctively repelled Dustless, or rather, repelled all Shinigami. It's okay. This kind of small injury is harmless to me. It won't have any effect. Wu Chen gave him a comforting look and smiled brightly. His internal organs could be vaguely seen, and even his beating heart could be seen clearly. Everything was corroded by the Spirit King's power. If it wasn't for Dustless's tough little life, he would have died already. Are you really planning to fight with Aizen Sosuke? Unohana Retsu asked gently as she carefully wiped the blood off Dustless's back with a towel. It's about time to settle everything. Dustless nodded and did not hide anything. Those captains are fighting to be the first to die, so I'll fulfill their wish. Do they really think that Aizen Sosuke is easy to bully? So naive that I can't even bear to look at him. Oh, you. Looking at the unhappy Dustless, Unohana Retsu did not know whether to laugh or cry. She suddenly felt that her lover was sometimes very naughty and would throw a tantrum. Hee. Actually, I can't wait for those captains to all die. Those annoying flies buzzing around all day long. In reality, they can't even take a single hit from Aizen Sosuke. Now, they even dare to act like they're the boss. They deserve to die. Dustless suddenly changed his expression and explained with a smile. Although I don't know where Yawatch is hiding, at least one thing is for sure. He needs a large number of souls to recover. Therefore, when we fight with Aizen Sosuke, that old bastard will definitely not be able to hold himself back and come out to collect souls. After all, war is the fastest time for living things to die. Unohana Retsu looked at Dustless's sinister smile with a headache. Somehow, she could feel Yawatch's resentment. Chapter 1209. Unohana Retsu was silent. Soul Society's captains considered Sosuke Aizen as their biggest enemy. But Sosuke Aizen himself regarded them as clowns. They're not even cannon fodder in front of Sosuke Aizen. Dustless looked at them with disdain. These captains who saw Sosuke Aizen's Kyoka Suigetsu couldn't even take a single hit from him. The gap between them was like heaven and earth. I just hope that with the help of those people's souls, I can lure out Yawatch behind the scenes. Dustless murmured to himself, lowering his head silently. Boom boom boom. Intense spiritual pressure fluctuations swept across Soul Society. Two violent spiritual pressures collided with each other, causing the sky to creak. This is... Dustless's eyes flashed with surprise. Those who dared to cause trouble near the 4th Division were quite bold, and the scale of their spiritual pressure wasn't weak either. It's Bandai and Iace Kawasaki. Damn it. Forget it, Retsu. Just as Unohana was about to rush out of the door, Dustless pulled her back and said with a smile, "We've already killed their captain, Zaraki Kenpachi. Soon, these two fellows will also suffer. As superiors, we need to be considerate of our subordinates. Let's let those two brats enjoy the rest of their lives." Not only Bandai and Iace Kawasaki's spiritual pressure was restless, even the 6th Division's vice-captain, Rangiase, Rukia, and Hinamori were reminiscing about their dead captains in their own ways. The entire Soul Society was gloomy and gloomy, without the slightest bit of fighting spirit. The death of the 4 captains was no less a blow to them than being struck by lightning. At the same time, in another direction, there was a fierce quarrel. "Get out of my way, don't stop me, I'm going to save my friends." In the modern world, in Urahara Kisuke's underground shop, a young man with orange hair and wearing a Shinigami costume shouted, "No matter who my enemy is, I won't leave Inoue alone." The young man was Shinozaki Ichigo, and he was sweating profusely while holding his Zanpakuto. "Yi-sen. It seems that this guy is a young man who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Urahara Kisuke turned to Yi-E, who had turned into a black cat, and said helplessly, "I understand." Yi-E replied and walked into the room. "With your weak strength, not to mention Sosuke Aizen, even his subordinates aren't someone you can handle. Shinozaki Ichigo. You're too weak." Urahara Kisuke said. Shinozaki Ichigo went silent. Shinozaki Ichigo's Ichigo wasn't a young man. Shinozaki Ichigo lowered his head and clenched his fists. His fingers clenched. He had never felt he was so weak. Kun. Ichigo, Yi-yama, S-yi-yi. Ah. Yi-kuns. Of S Kakaku, S Shino S was Kikiki S. Her. Him. His S Isakat. S is he. Broken. His. It. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Shinozaki Ichigo, who was provoked, roared as he unleashed his Zanpakuto without hesitation and slashed towards 4 Maple Court's Yi-E. Full of flaws. When he saw this, the pupils of the 4th Courtyard's Yi-E constricted in disdain. He turned around and kicked. Bang bang bang. Kurosaki Ichigo, who was rushing over, suddenly disappeared. Everyone could only see him disappear in an instant. Ka. On top of a pile of yellow soil 100 meters away, there was a loud explosion. The miserable Shinozaki Ichigo was stuck in the soil, and he was seeing stars from the kick of the 4 Maple Court. At the same time, in another strange space, Compared to the tense atmosphere of the unlucky Kurosaki Ichigo, the atmosphere here was much more relaxed. How do you feel? Is there anything wrong? Shidoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai looked at Dustless expectantly, and their eyes sparkled. There doesn't seem to be anything special. Feeling the waves in his body, Dustless immediately frowned and said, "Could it be that the two of you made a mistake? Don't worry, it's fine. We can take it slow." He revealed a gentle smile, indicating that there was no need for them to worry. Shidoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai looked at each other, and they could see the astonishment and abnormality in each other's eyes. In their cognition, Dustless had always been a cruel person who would do anything to achieve his goals. Even Shidoro Senjumaru was ready to be violated by Dustless again. Who would have thought that this guy would just laugh it off? On Dustless's chest, a blue sphere was shining, crystal clear, like a luminous pearl, very dazzling. This was the Hogyoku that Dustless ordered Shidoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai to develop. Now it had been completed, but the result was disappointing. The Hogyoku in Dustless's body didn't react at all. Maybe you made a mistake in some steps. Dustless said. Urahara Kisuke and Aizen Sosuke also failed. They spent decades or even hundreds of years to complete it. Maybe there was a mistake in the subtle links. Shidoro Senjumaru tapped her chin lightly, but Sayaso Tongsai had a straight face. Obviously, she didn't think so. In short, let's take it slow, don't be too hasty. Dustless was relieved. If the two women spent less than a month to make the Hogyoku, it would be too unfair to their peers, Aizen Sosuke and Urahara Kisuke. Chapter 12:10. Hogyoku took a long time to develop. Aizen and Urahara Kisuke were peerless geniuses, but even with their wisdom, it took them a long time to develop Hogyoku. Furthermore, they were all imperfect existences. Let nature take its course. Wu Chen patted the shoulders of the two women, indicating that they didn't have to care about it, but the angry Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru didn't appreciate it. He said with a disgusted face, "Give me your claws." Hee hee. The voice that fell on the edge of his mouth came to an abrupt halt. Shidoro Senjumaru's hair stood on end unconsciously. His entire body stiffened. He shivered and turned his head stiffly. What's with that look? Xiaofan Senjumaru was scared. Dustless's green eyes made his soul tremble. He stuttered, "You first. Offending the Spirit King is a big problem." Wu Chen laughed mischievously. With one sentence, he had sent Shura Thousand Hand Maru to hell. Wu Chen's policy had always been to forcefully crush this ice-cold woman until she completely surrendered one day. "Miss Xiaotoro, aren't you going to leave?" Looking at Zhou Tongsheng ambiguously, Wu Chen smiled and teased. "Although most scientists don't have the basic understanding of men and women, it's not good for you to watch us make a baby in such a big way, right?" Make a baby? Hearing this, Sayaso Torisei was startled at first. His face was full of doubt. Immediately, he looked at the red face of Shidoro Senjumaru and immediately understood what he meant. He cursed in his heart. Shameless. Inside Lost Yi Temple. On the throne, Aizen Kisuke looked down at the chaotic Minos Grande. His eyes flashed as he used his god-level deduction ability. Arankars. A magical voice spread quietly, and the restless Arankars suddenly became silent. They all looked at Aizen Kisuke, who was standing on the altar. The war with the Shinigami is imminent. I hope everyone can gather their thoughts and defeat the Shinigami. We are invincible in front of us, and the world is under our feet. Aizen Kisuke raised his voice and said. His impassioned tone made everyone's blood boil. Kill all the death gods. Flatten Soul Society. Sweep away the Grim Reapers and eat them all. Seeing this, the corners of Aizen Sosuke's mouth curled into a smug smile. Most people were immersed in the joy of trampling on Soul Society. A bunch of pawns, to think that you can step into heaven. Even if you can really step into heaven with me, it will only be for a short moment. When you fall down, you will be smashed into pieces. Sosuke Aizen smiled and didn't say anything. He just watched this scene quietly. Since these arrogant insects chose to go to hell for him, Aizen naturally wouldn't refuse their good intentions. At this time, Aizen Sosuke frowned. After fusing with Hogyoku, his strength has reached a terrifying level. The entire Hueco Mundo is under his control. he said with interest. Seems like someone has already invaded Hueco Mundo. Is it to save that little girl? Aizen Sosuke muttered to himself. He smiled faintly and said to Ulquiorra, Ulquiorra, I will leave that little girl to you. Don't disappoint me. Understood, Aizen-sama. The ones who invaded Hueco Mundo are Kurosaki Ichigo and his people. Even though he lost to Four Maple Court's Yi, he learned Hueco Mundo's abilities by chance. At the same time, Dustless and the others were about to rush to the modern world when an unimaginable change occurred. Ka-ka-ka. The sky above Soul Society cracked open, revealing a deep black cavity. Groups of Jillian stepped out of it, their earth-shattering roars resounding throughout Soul Society. Strange, the first place to make Wang Jian should be the modern world. What are they doing here? Are they planning to directly destroy the Grim Reapers of Soul Society? Dustless speculated Aizen Sosuke's intentions. At the same time, the Grim Reapers of Soul Society began to fight against the Minos. A fierce battle began. Let's go to Hueco Mundo, no, to the modern world, Retsu. The other captains will stay here to deal with the Minos. Dustless ordered briefly. He then left Soul Society with Unohana Retsu and rushed to the modern world. These pawns would be left for the Grim Reapers to deal with. Aizen Sosuke's main goal was Soul King. That was Dustless. Understood, head captain. In the modern world, the sky that was supposed to be cloudless was now filled with dark clouds. An endless stream of greater voids walked out of the black cavities. The greater voids were spitting out red flashes from their mouths as they wantonly destroyed the city. The places that the greater voids walked through were left in a mess. The cities that were perfectly fine were destroyed by the greater voids, turning into debris and ruins. At the same time, a bright white light flashed in the sky. Dustless and the others walked out of the world crossing gate. That brat Aizen Sosuke doesn't seem to be here. Dustless muttered after seeing the entire world. There was no sign of Aizen Sosuke, only a group of Jillian. How strange. What does Sosuke Aizen mean by this? Looking at the mess below, Dustless couldn't help but frown. After searching for a long time, let alone Sosuke Aizen, there wasn't even a trace of the Minos of Hueco Mundo. There was only a group of Jillian. There was no Vasto Lord or Ajuches. This scene stunned everyone. Chapter 12:11. The modern realm had turned into a wasteland with black smoke rising from it. Mere humans had no power to fight back in front of Jillian. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, a sharp sound pierced through the air. Dustless narrowed his eyes and looked at the blue arrows coming from afar. A cold light flashed by the corner of his mouth. You guys go to Soul Society first. We might have been tricked by Aizen Sosuke. He might have turned around and attacked Soul Society. Unohana Retsu turned around and said, But you? Unohana Retsu frowned and looked at the arrows coming from afar. Be careful. You're still alive after so many years. The heavens must be blind. After seeing who it was, Dustless's expression turned cold. His spiritual pressure surged and a huge cold light shot out. Hado 63. Thunder Roar Cannon. The beam of light engulfed the heavens and the earth, forming a huge wave of energy that came crashing down, its momentum soaring into the sky. Ka-ka-ka. Before the arrow could touch Wu Chen, it was melted by the heat emitted by the Thunder Roar Cannon, and turned into liquid spirit particles that floated around. Damn it, the heavens are so unfair. You've become stronger again. The white-haired man hovered in the sky. He was obviously higher up in the air and looked down at Dustless. After so many years, you're still as weak as before. Smiling contemptuously, Wu Chen opened his mouth and mocked mercilessly. What? Why are you looking for me now? Are you trying to kill me for revenge? Or do you want to take me down with you? The man was Ishida Yuryu's father. Ishida Ryukshin. Where is Shinji? Ishida Ryukshin suppressed the anger in his heart and asked hoarsely. I can't tell you. Dustless looked up and said indifferently. In fact, he knew that he had sent Candace and Bambietta to look for Shinji Kurosaki, but they didn't get any information in the end. Not even the slightest clue could be found. After so many years, nothing was found. If that's the case, then die. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Another wave of arrows flew towards him. Every single one of them was deadly, and almost all of them were aimed at the vital parts of his body. Other than the few of them, it's better for everyone else to die. Seeing this, Dustless didn't even try to defend himself. He allowed the incoming arrow to hit his body and completely ignored it. Against such a weak attack, any move would be useless. Clang, clang, clang. Dustless's skin emitted some sparks as if he had hit steel. This guy. Seeing this, Ishida Ryuzo's eyes widened. He knew that Dustless was a monster. Who would have thought that after not seeing him for a few years, he would evolve into a divine beast? His body was as tough as steel, and there was no way he could break it. Oh my, you are indeed a highly skilled doctor. Where is the shoe print on your face? Back then, I spent a lot of effort to leave it behind. Could it be that you used your own medical skills to remove the footprint on your face? Ah! It's rare to see a doctor like you who can perform surgery on himself. Dustless laughed without restraint. Even an idiot could tell that he was rubbing salt on the wound, let alone the talented Ishida Ryuzo. You rascal you! Ishida Ryuzo's face darkened. Of course, he could tell that Dustless was implying something. Countless veins popped out from his forehead as if there were worms moving inside. It was very frightening. Who are you trying to impress? Do you think that you can scare me? With a sneer, Dustless disappeared. However, the entire space was filled with his voice. It was as if he was an invisible spirit. Even the sky was filled with his voice. Bastard! Where are you? Come at me if you have the guts. Don't hide. Ishida Ryuzo's eyes bulged. It was as if his eyeballs were going to fall out. The blood vessels were clearly visible. He looked left and right to search for Dustless. Your reaction is still too slow. At this moment, an indifferent voice came from the sky again. Found you. You have so many flaws. His eyes flickered. Ishida Ryuzo shot out the arrow in his hand at the fastest speed in his life. It was like a ray of light that hit Dustless. His heart, head, and throat were all hit by an arrow. His organs were also filled with arrows. He was almost killed in one shot. There was no chance of survival. You're dead for sure now, you damned monster. Ishida Ryuzo had excellent eyesight. Naturally, he could see Dustless's condition. His heart was crushed. Even a god would not be able to save him. At the same time, the dark clouds in his heart disappeared. Finally this. Ishida Ryuzo's smug smile disappeared. He felt a sharp pain in his nerves. He lowered his head in shock. What he saw was a shining golden sword. I really don't know what you are so happy about. After all, we are old friends. I asked you to kill me to vent your anger. Now, not only are you not grateful, you are even glaring at me. What a heartless thing. Dustless said angrily. You be *****. Ishida Ryuzo glared at Dustless. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He stared at Dustless fiercely and raised his trembling hands. It seemed like he wanted to strangle him to death. Resistance before death. Seeing this, Dustless smiled cruelly. The Kusanagi sword in his hand suddenly spun. Ka. Ishida Ryuzo's organs were instantly ruptured. He was in so much pain that he wanted to die. His abdomen was crushed by the sharpness of the Kusanagi sword. Ishida Ryuzo could feel his life draining away rapidly. He felt that death was close at hand. He even saw a skeleton in black clothes with a scythe in his hand. You can't even withstand a single blow. Shaking his head silently, Dustless pulled out the Kusanagi sword coldly. Ishida Ryuzo was in so much pain that he could not stop it. Both of them were from different dimensions. Chapter 12:12. A look of disdain flashed past Dustless's eyes as he walked past like a gust of wind. Stop right there, you bastard. Ishida Ryushin used the longbow as a support and stood up with great difficulty. He stared at Dustless's back as he clenched his fists so tightly that they were as big as his head. Not dead yet. Dustless turned his head and revealed half of his eyes. Looking at the destroyed heart, he was relieved. So it was just a momentary recovery of consciousness. To be honest, people like you are really strange. You knew that you were going to die, but you still rushed in without hesitation. TSKSK, are you an idiot? Ishida Ryushin gritted his teeth in anger. It was Dustless who took everything away from him. Are you unwilling to accept this? Dustless turned his head to look at Ishida Ryushin, who wanted to tear him into pieces. He had seen this kind of look many times and was used to it. Although Ishida Ryushin didn't say anything, Dustless could read the meaning behind his ferocious eyes. I have taken away many things in this world. Strength, power, fame, and status. I have taken away all the things that people yearn for. But, since you have taken away other people's things, you better return them to me. Ishida Ryushin's saliva flew everywhere and his mouth was filled with blood. He directly interrupted Dustless's speech. I'm sorry, I can't do that. You are forcing me to do something I don't want to do. But since we knew each other in the past, I can reluctantly take care of you. Dustless gently pointed his finger and revealed a bright smile. I'll give you a free ticket to the Heavenly Kingdom. As his voice fell, a black shadowless blade appeared behind Dustless's back. 90 black coffin of the broken Tao. Vicious slashes came from all directions. Ishida Ryushin, who was on the verge of collapse and couldn't even stand properly, was naturally unable to resist. A living person was cut into pieces. The smell of blood assailed their nostrils, but no one cared. Even some Jillian who noticed Dustless's presence stood in a daze and didn't dare to make the slightest move. Looking closely, Jillians were all trembling. Their faces showed a rare touch of fear. They didn't have consciousness. This fear came from the depths of their souls. Next, it's Aizen Sosuke's turn. Looking at the empty seat village that had turned into a broken dam, Wu Chen walked away indifferently. A powerful ripple swept out from his body. In the blink of an eye, it swallowed the entire world. Super Shinra Tensei. Kaka. Even though they were aware of the danger and had retreated, the wandering Jillian still couldn't avoid the tragic fate of being completely annihilated. Kongzucho had also turned into an unprecedentedly large crater. It was as if it had been smashed by a meteorite from outer space. All life forms were ruthlessly obliterated by Dustless. Even if there are incidentally surviving human beings, they are also wiped out by Dustless. The whole world is so big, I want to see where you can run to. Dustless muttered inside the world gate. The bright space in front of him is Soul Society. There are only 3 places in the world: Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, and the modern world. Besides these 3 places, Aizen Sosuke has nowhere to go. At present, the only place he could go was Soul Society. The world in front of him suddenly became very dazzling. Dustless instinctively closed his eyes. After a while, he felt the sunlight was much softer, so he slowly opened his eyes. The picturesque Soul Society in the past has changed. Everywhere was black scorched earth and smoke of war. Head Captain Sama. A beautiful voice came from behind. Wu Chen leisurely turned around, and a peerless beauty floated into his eyes. Luanju? How did you end up like this? As the god of death, you lost your Zanpakuto. Although I rarely taught you real skills, I taught you a lot of life-saving tricks. No matter how poor you are, you shouldn't end up like this. Putting his hands in his sleeves, Dustless asked unhappily. Hearing this, Matsumoto Ranjaku licked her dry lips and smiled bitterly. I'm afraid Soul Society is like us. I don't know why Zanpakuto betrayed their master. It's not Aizen Sosuke? Dustless raised his eyebrows and a touch of disappointment flashed in his eyes. He picked up a piece of tender grass and put it in his mouth, then chewed it with boredom. I heard about Zanpakuto's betrayal. The culprit seems to be called Muramasa. If you want them to surrender again, you have to surrender to Zanpakuto again. Kakaka. As soon as he finished talking about the method to subdue Zanpakuto, the sky cracked open and several familiar figures walked out. Urahara Kisuk? Dustless's calm eyes flashed with surprise. Noticing that something was wrong, he frowned and restrained his frivolous expression. Even if this kid's strength is not as terrifying as Aizen Sosuke, his scheming is extremely terrifying. Could it be? Looking at the messy Soul Society, an incredible thought suddenly popped up in Wu Chen's mind. Especially the cunning smile on Urahara Kisuk's lips, and the change in his eyes from time to time, Wu Chen began to daydream. It was hard for him not to misunderstand. In the past, Urahara Kisuk cooperated with Dustless because he had no choice. If one day he had the means to resist Dustless, he would definitely not mind stabbing him in the back. Chapter 12-13. Looking at Urahara Kisuk with interest, Dustless couldn't help but start to think. What kind of method will Urahara Kisuk use to retaliate against me? Dustless was quite curious, and he expected Urahara Kisuk's betrayal. After all, he did that kind of thing to Yi in the Four-Maple Court, openly molesting her. It's normal for Urahara Kisuk to hold a grudge. How can he allow someone else to sleep beside him? No man will allow this to happen. Luanju, I'll take care of this. You can go back to Soul Society for the time being. Dustless smiled at Matsumoto Luanju and said, Captain Yu. Looking at Dustless's smiling face, Matsumoto Luanju's heart couldn't help but tighten. Ikamaru Jin was very important to her, but now that she has betrayed Soul Society, she only has Dustless who saved her from trouble in her heart. Forget it. What am I worried about? Matsumoto Luanju laughed at herself, thinking of Dustless's strength. All the confusion disappeared immediately. Her graceful body turned into a breeze and disappeared with the wind. By the way, the materialization of Zanpakuto shouldn't be done by this kid, right? Dustless's eyes narrowed. This is not impossible. If it was in the past, this kind of thing would never happen. After all, the original leader of the Godai 13 was Yamamoto Ryusai, but now Dustless took over and became the second captain, so Urahara Kisuk's hostility towards the Godai 13 was inevitable. Yo, Manager Urahara, it's rare to see you. Now that Soul Society is in trouble, are you here to help? Dustless stretched, floating in front of Urahara Kisuk. After yawning he asked, or are you here to loot a burning house? You should understand this. Seeing Dustless appear, Urahara Kisuk carefully stared at him for a few seconds, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. In other words, you want to be my enemy? Dustless sighed and said with great disappointment, I value our cooperation very much, but now you violate our original cooperation agreement and want to cancel it in advance. It's really... Don't lie. Urahara Kisuk shook his head and said, Kuchiki Byakuya, Rafaya Toshiro, Zaraki Kenpachi, and Yukatake Jushiru should have been killed by you. Although it was an unfounded guess, Urahara Kisuk's words, he was full of determination, he said. I have been monitoring his every move. It is impossible for him to kill them, so the only person I can think of is you. Your mind is, you're too smart, you can't, Kisuk, Kisuk, Teet, admit, Urahara you. Tease, teet, s. The sudden sentence made Urahara Kisuk stunned. His puzzled eyes showed that he didn't understand the meaning of Wuchan's words. It was not difficult to see that he didn't understand Wuchan's meaning at all. The hidden Uraba is more dangerous than Aizen, but because he wiped out the Sternritter, even if he wants to resurrect the Sternritter, he will need a lot of souls, so... I don't need to say more, you should understand what I mean. This is not an excuse for you to kill those captains. Urahara Kisuk understood and said with a hoarse voice. It seems that I was naive enough to cooperate with a devil in the guise of the Grim Reaper. Urahara Kisuk laughed bitterly at himself. After a long while he changed the topic and said sternly, After a great war, countless creatures will die, and a large number of souls will be produced. It can indeed attract Yawatch to surface. But have you forgotten your identity? You are a captain, not an executioner who has no regard for human life. You watched as the Great Void ravaged the modern world and Soul Society without doing anything, which shows that your heart is cold. Urahara Kisuk's Ryatsu was already throbbing in his body. To achieve great things, don't bother about trifles. So what if 2 captains died? Dustless didn't care and said in a carefree tone, Only when more people die and more souls are produced will Uraba, the cat that smells blood, come out. It's because of this that our cooperation fell apart, and the first person to tear up the agreement was you. Urahara Kisuk didn't back down. He gritted his teeth and said, Not only that, I will also become your enemy. Just you? And the props behind you? Even the props made by the Zero Squad can't suppress me, let alone you. Dustless glanced at the props behind Urahara Kisuk and said calmly. Ignoring Dustless's mockery, Urahara Kisuk was full of confidence and replied indifferently. To borrow a phrase from the modern world, science changes the world. Hearing this, Dustless's shining eyes couldn't help but stagnate, and he secretly cursed Urahara Kasuk for acting recklessly. Well, it's good to kill a smiling tiger like you. Who knows when you will stab me in the back. Anyway, now that I have Sayaso Kirusi I and Shout Oro Thousand Hand Maru, it doesn't matter if I don't have you, Urahara Kasuk, the world will still revolve around me. Dustless felt relieved, and then the Ryatsu all over his body began to rage, turning into a dense attack that swept towards Urahara Kasuk. The whole void was trembling, and the boundless energy tide covered the sky, and the clear sky was as dark as night. Now Dustless, after devouring the Psionic King, had such strength that the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked, and the sun and moon lost their light. This pervert! Seeing this, Urahara Kasuk's pupils shrank, and his old face changed dramatically. He cursed and quickly fled, but sadly, the endless energy tide came from all directions, and the whole world seemed to be Urahara Kasuk's enemy, and no place was safe. Chapter 12-14. Seeing such a scene, Urahara Kasuk's face turned green, and the Ryatsu fluctuations around him made him shudder. Hado number 91, Thousand Hands Clear Sky Cannon. The sky full of pink light attacked him, and there was no way to escape. There was no space for Urahara Kasuk to escape, and he could only hide in the black hole behind him. Boom boom boom, until the pink light exploded, Urahara Kasuk came out of the black hole with an ugly face. Yo, are you going to deal with me like this? Hiding here and there? Are you a dog? Manager Urahara. Dustless's tone was sharp, and his face was full of bad intentions, and there was no doubt that this was intentional. No matter how strong you are, you can't beat this mouth of yours. Urahara Kasuk's face turned cold, and he took out a black hood and put it on his body. Immediately, under Dustless's astonishment, Urahara Kasuk disappeared, and his Ryatsu was completely hidden. Seeing such an inconceivable scene, Dustless could not help but be flabbergasted. Then, he blinked his eyes and kept having a feeling that this scene was somewhat familiar. By the way, in the original manga, Aizen and the other two seem to have used this kind of cloak to attack Isshin Shiba. Pucci. At this moment, Dustless suddenly felt a sharp pain in his wrist, and a small scar appeared inexplicably. Did Urahara Kasuk cut it? Dustless guessed. Looking at the shallow scar, he curled his lips and said disdainfully, "However, this strength is really weak, didn't you eat?" Urahara Kasuk. Bastard. Is this guy a grand virtuous? No, even if he is a grand virtuous, his steel skin shouldn't be so hard. Urahara Kasuk looked at the incomplete wound, and his forehead was full of black lines, and he was particularly depressed. He attacked with all his strength, and it caused a negligible skin injury to Dustless. The worst thing was that his Zanpakuto was chipped, and the skin of Grand Virtuous was not so hard. However, this was not the most frightening thing. Ka. The Earth of Soul Society did not receive any attack, but a thick fissure that was dozens of kilometers long had appeared out of thin air. That bottomless abyss was like the masterpiece of a god, a dark maw that was impossible to dispel. What's going on? Urahara Kasuk couldn't help but be startled, his face full of astonishment. Dustless looked around and noticed that there was no movement of Urahara Kasuk. He immediately opened his observation hockey and put the whole place under his eyes. Even if you blind my eyes, you can't escape the perception of observation hockey. Dustless snickered in his heart. A few seconds later, he sensed a shadow pouncing on him from behind, secretly gathering a powerful force. Bang bang bang. The moment the Zanpakuto was about to hit Dustless's head, his body suddenly turned around, revealing a cold face and a giant foot. Pucci! Urahara Kasuk's chest was suddenly smashed into a big hole, and blood flowed non-stop. One could vaguely see his ribs, as well as various internal organs. Shoo shoo shoo! His body kept flying, and when he was about to hit the mountain in the distance, a figure stopped him. It turned out to be you, Yue-san, thank you. Urahara Kasuk solemnly thanked her, and with a painful expression, he endured the tingling all over his body and asked seriously, "Weren't you in Hueco Mundo? I remember fighting with Shinozaki Ichigo's group." Hearing this, Yue-san of the Four Maple Court's tone stagnated, and she didn't know how to answer. Looking at the shocking crack on the ground, A terrifying thought flashed in her heart. The eyes looking at Dustless slowly changed, from the original disgust to complex, and even with a little awe. I'll make a long story short. The same thing happened to Hueco Mundo and Soul Society. After a tremor, a huge crack appeared. This is definitely not a coincidence. Yi Uesan of the Four Maple Court was silent, and there was a different meaning in her words. Could it be that? This guy? Could it be that? Urahara Kisuk, who has always been quick-witted, trembled and was full of horror. Realizing that something was wrong, he quickly asked Yi Uesan of the Four Maple Court, "Did this happen in the modern world?" "That's right." Yi Uesan of the Four Maple Court was silent, and after a while, he looked at Urahara Kisuk's eyes and nodded heavily. "Could it be that you have become a spirit king?" When mentioning the two words spirit king, Urahara Kisuk's tone obviously stuttered. His head was lowered, and his eyes were dull, as if his soul had been taken away and he had become a walking corpse. "My identity as a spirit king is such a big blow to you? If I knew earlier, I would have said my identity." Dustless complained with a look of pity, and was quite disappointed. "How can a person like you become a spirit king?" Urahara Kisuk raised his voice and asked, full of disbelief. Although Urahara Kisuk supported Wu Chen to become the spirit king when they cooperated in the past, it was just a joke at that time. It went in one ear and out the other, so he didn't care. Who would have thought that this nightmare would come true? "What's so surprising about you?" Pulling off his clothes, Dustless revealed a clean chest, and in the center was obviously inlaid with a black bead. Pointing at it, he said, "This is a spirit king. The two of us have become one, and I am now the new spirit king." "Impossible!" Urahara Kisuk roared, with a somewhat sharp tone. "Don't deceive yourself, Urahara Kisuk. You should know in your heart that the cracks of Soul Society, the modern world, and Hueco Mundo explain everything. The Spirit King is the chisel of all things in the world. If the Spirit King falls, all things will collapse. If the Spirit King is injured, Soul Society, the modern world, and Hueco Mundo will also be injured. In this case, do you still dare to kill me? If I stand still, what can you do to me?" You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.